have a number of bow players in this event. I've seen a renaissance of the tri-stringer come through. Some old favorites as well. Tan essentially piloting some mid to backline range elements like the Forge Flattershot Pro in the 96. Santo being that up close and personal on the Carbon Roller Deco, as well as the Luna Neo. Talk about a weapon that's broken out in 2026. And then Tufa rounding things out could also play that Neo, but more unfortunately, last night options even after a couple of tweaks in recent patches. And of course, they're going to take on OO in this 8v9 battle, a team with some decent results of their own, some players from the team Blanks. But this is a more, I think, balanced composition, not as close dark in terms of range. They are going to be more comfortable, I think, with a passive or patient playstyle.
Yeah, I mean, with the big standout here for me personally is seeing the dually squelchers coming out from Zane. You know, not a weapon you do see too often here, but definitely a longer range weapon to be able to poke people out, especially bringing that along with the Tetra dualies as well. It has a lot of skirmishing power, and of course you have some staples here with the Forge or the Blaster from Pancake, Muffin bringing out the Pencil, and of course Mert bringing either any of the mini Splatlings or the heavy Splatling to close things out.
Yeah, heavy Splatling, that was another one of the weapons that was tweaked months ago. Weren't sure how it was going to affect it. Really has remained pretty relevant. And the mini Splatling, rare to see it mained by a lot of players, but it is this consistent pocket pick, and there isn't really a bad kit to it, although the Zimmy and the Vanilla are the preferable ones, despite the hype that the third kit did end up getting before it's released. As you mentioned, Zane should be a really interesting player to watch on these dually squelchers, and even the Tetras. Don't get to see Tetra players that often. I do find it's one of the weapons that players like to main or to be even one tricks of. So I think for that weapon that has a very high skill ceiling, the players that do put this heavy amount of time into it are going to get that investment out of it.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast to see. Dually Squelchers was always my beloved in the past series, so getting to see any use at any level, I'm like, yes, bring me more of that. But no, I do believe here we are currently waiting on the strikeouts for these two teams to see what we might be playing first. I do believe, as a refresher, for my own sake, as well for the people who may have not seen it for a while, teams has an opportunity here to strike out any of these maps here, as you see on your lovely screen here. I do believe it is Takedown who is striking the first two stages before handing it off over to OO to strike out the next two stages, and then the map will be selected from the remaining stages here at that point onward.
Yeah, that's the gimmick. Start with everything available and slowly break it down from there. Only splat zones today as a reminder, and Takedown with the first strike coming in. So Crab Leg Capital going to be the first banned stage. Did see it in the Splatoon 3 North American League, much more so on things like Tower Control and Turf War zones. It was still pretty relevant though. So interesting to see that one taken away. Maybe you're kind of splitting the middle and saying, okay, there's a lower third that is very unlikely to be played. There's an upper third of stages that we like and wouldn't mind seeing. We have to maybe pick somewhere in the middle that is somewhat popular, but that we're not very comfortable on.
Yeah, no, I think Capital is for Takedown side anyways, a decent pick here. But now what the next map might be, what the next stage might be banned here, it will see here shortly. I do... Looking at what's on the board here in terms of what these teams are bringing in terms of weapons, I do wonder, like, is there any particular stages, Zach, that you think like are absolutely going to be banned right out the gate here, as well as we're waiting for these players to get their next bans in?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it comes down to comp preferability and how you want to play. I think a lot, obviously there's going to be more of the one zone stages than two zone stages, and there's only one or two that really ever get picked. I think ones that are going to have this ability to be very difficult to get out of a spawn, where you can be pretty easily spawn camped. I'm thinking like a Barnacle and Dime. Even the second Stricken stage here, Museum de Alfonsino, it could be pretty tough on zones to get back out. You see it played a lot more for Rainmaker and Clam Blitz because those two modes are more hectic, and especially for Clam Blitz, you're having to traverse the entire stage, where before Museum de Alfonsino, if you're looking at it from zones, it's one huge zone. You've got an obstacle on top. Isn't always optimal for teams to play. So I think either stages that are going to be difficult to get out of spawn for, because we will see the more lopsided matches take place earlier on, or things that are just going to be annoying for compositions or players, like having lots of different obstacles to try and play around.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest here. I'm kind of surprised that Flounder Heights hasn't been struck out yet, because I do know that's pretty popular to take out of the rotation here already. I mean, maybe OVO might be striking it here in the next 1 or 2 bans incoming on their end, but no, I think a lot of, at least for this first round, it is as you said, Zach, it is a lot of players or teams electing to choose out those more uncomfortable maps or stages to bring out of this potential rotation here. Manta Maria is also, I think, a pretty popular one to strike out as well. But I highly doubt, until we actually start playing here, I highly doubt we'll see stuff like Mako Mart get struck out, Umami Ruins get struck out, or even Scorch Gorge get struck out,
Yeah, because you have to think of the distance too that you're having to travel. Manta Maria, the first thing I thought of, man, is that a slog to get back to. You can even liken it to a more popular Splat Zone stage in an Urchin Underpass, kind of the newer kid on the block, obviously coming from the original Splatoon game, but that is played, so far away from your spawn, but there is not this level. You don't really see spawn camping take place on something like an Urchin Underpass, because it's such a pain to get to that area. It's elevated. You have to go through grates. You have to get high ground, and you want to maintain the position on the hill ahead of the zone, which is a very small zone. That's another kind of quirk. It's not one of these huge zones like a Museum de Alfonsino, but it's something where you will have to set up. Maybe a lot of players go with like a Dapple Dualies or another beacon weapon where they can get back a little bit easier. And the team that's defending the zone, therefore, will want to defend either those jump-ins or just flat out break the beacon. So if teams are comfortable playing like both up close and at range, maybe you go there. But otherwise, for stages like that where it takes just so long to get back and you lose so much momentum and time just by getting back to the objective, you may not want to deal with that hassle.
It's funny you mentioned it now, that as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm pretty sure OVO might be less inclined to take those out, because I do believe both the mini and maybe the dually jet squelchers, I forget if they do have or not, have beacons on one of their kits. If I'm correct on that, and it's been a while since I actually looked at those weapon kits, but I'm pretty sure at least one of them has a beacon sub on their lineup, so they might be more inclined to play on it. Yeah. There's the custom.
That would be the custom dually squelchers. Yes. There you go.
Yeah, I think they definitely will be ones to be less inclined. They might actually want to bring in Urchin, or take it to Urchin Underpass or Manta Maria, because they have those beacons. Like, hey, we have this tool, let's leverage it because it actually favors our team specifically.
I would be really interested to see the Hoops dually squelchers come out. I remember when that suite of weapons was announced, it was kind of immediately dismissed as, oh, what is this kit? It's pretty bad. All the focus was on like the new mini Splatling, the new Rapid Blaster, and it's been pretty decent. I think it's kind of gone under the radar as a pretty decent pick, but we mentioned it earlier. Mako Mart is stricken, and it is Undertow Spillway that will be the venue for game number 1. We are in winners round 1, so for the first portion of this event, we will be in best of 3 territory, and then we will eventually work our way out to best of 5. But Dark, as you know, the mistakes are magnified and the stakes are that much higher when you only have the maximum of 3 games to work with.
Yeah, no, pressure is definitely going to be out on the gate. And yeah, of course, it is double elimination, so losing here isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but no one wants to do a loser's bracket run this early on in the day. So, definitely going to be a lot of pressure, a lot of momentum being built up, not in just this round, but also in this first match here, as players are getting ready. But no, Undertow Spillway being our first game here, I kind of like this one. I'm always a big fan of the dual zone stages on any capacity here. So Undertow Spillway, it has, even though I'm a little bit iffy on this stage in general, it brings it up on this mode specifically because of the dual zones.
Good to have a Splat Zones only event too, because Rainmaker is usually the mode that takes the spotlight for Undertow Spillway overwhelmingly, but this is one of our only 2 zone stages that we potentially have to work with. We talked about Flounder Heights on one end of the spectrum and Umami Ruins on the other end in terms of player favorability. Undertow Spillway, I think definitely more on the favored side than the not so favored. Maybe more in the middle though than an Umami Ruins, but there is something here for everybody. There's overlooks if you're an anchor player. There's these huge pillars that you can hide behind. You just have enough room if you're something like a heavy Splatling player that gives you cover. And of course, these low alleyways that will give your flanker players some dreams. So let's get into game number 1 here. It is the winners round 1 between OO and Takedown. And taking a look at the composition here, Dark, not too many surprises in terms of what we saw. I do see Zane on that Splat Dualies to give the crab tank, and there are a couple of places to do high ground there. Otherwise, specials obviously that are catered for Splat Zone.
Yeah, nothing too surprising out the gate here as both teams make a breakaway for the zone, see who can get the first swing and momentum in their favor. Tactical are online for OWO here, does bring a lot of tempo in their wake as they bring Takedown 2, potentially a third here going down. They have a good control of the zone of this area. Now they're looking to use specials to leverage their momentum to push Takedown back.
Yeah, the Inkling Tri-Stringer going to be the back line there. So if you don't have the Sniper Rider 5H, that gives you that end zap, a great, very accurate shooter as your tactical or weapon of choice. And then your other 2 weapons are just these giga offensive powerhouses, the Custom Blaster with that triple splashdown, and the other one being the Carbon Roller, which did just go down, but they're traded out. So it's 3v3 effectively as these teams jockey for position. But for now, OWO doing a good job of holding back Takedown, who isn't able to find ground in mid yet.
Yeah, but we do see 2 players on the top ramp. A good Reef Slider does mix up things a little bit here in mid. Go looking to try and see find another player here. Pull out momentum, gets 2, potentially a third here. God's taken down by the Stringer, but the damage has already been done. Takedown takes the zone, and we are forced a jump out here from OWO. A delayed wipeout in my books.
That's the beauty of those Dark Tetra Dualies, the 2 additional dodges that you get, just making it so difficult for you to be tracked by weapons, especially with the slower rate of fire. Now we have Tufu trying to get back and using that triple splashdown. It does take control of the zone, so nice job. And an additional in-your-face splat there to get the wipeout. And this is what OO has done consistently in our first not even 2 minutes of this game so far, is not relying on just one splat. They are chasing down these stragglers and delaying Takedown from getting back in a timely manner.
Yeah, keeping the enemy team staggered here is crucial, especially on this stage in particular, with how chaotic and how the attention needs to be split between the 2 zones. Needing to have that coordination can be a crucial key point to try and leverage against your enemy team here. But as I say, that Takedown is looking to try and re-engage here in mid. They do take control of the zone, but can they hold it for much long? It seems unlikely, but Zane on the back end once again looking to try and pull some tension away from mid at the very least.
So now trying to break in, that's Gold A. Coming out of the Reef Slider, so tough. You have that ending lag animation, but a couple of splats there will certainly help. Great job there by Eriko and crew. Erito getting the splat and now set up in this premier position. This is normally where the other team's anchor player should be. Zane finally tracking them down. You had that Flow Aura State entered as well as Tufa getting the Tacticaler as well. And for now, holding them down. Strong play so far.
Yeah, a good checkmate is being potentially set up here. They have their ink covered throughout the majority of these drop downs. They're looking at all these ledges, all these potential angles to keep specifically Zane in check to prevent any more flanks here. This is very dangerous for OO as Takedown is looking to try and get the takeout, the knockout here, and now there's only 15 ticks remaining, and I don't know how OO breaks through this.
Takedown in single digits remaining. Santo trying to catch anybody that gets too close. Merritt trying desperately to keep that zone painted, but they have 2 to worry about, and that's going to be 2 too many, it seems like, as Takedown goes 2 down. OWO holding it down and now pressuring them forward. They're basically going to have to load them into this spawn area and make sure that they can't get out, which is a tall order considering you have a large amount of space. Tufa already back in as well in a 2v2 situation, but they will fall. And already Takedown is starting to claim the zone back.
Yeah, a good hold, a good swing in their momentum here. Doesn't necessarily wipe out takedown just yet, but they're starting to build up a good potential snowball here. Slowly, one by one, takedown's losing a little bit of grip, a little bit of potential here. Erito gets a good pick against Gold, which is a big swing back into their favor, but these constant back and forth trades is going to be in favor of Owo as well, as they're going to slowly be able to chip away with these points additionally by time and time again. But takedown does take the zone once again, but they have that hefty amount of penalty points, but they are in the lead, so it's gonna be a close call as we enter the last 30 seconds.
Oh, nice double splat there. Muffin entering the flow aura state, looking for the third of the tab shot. Santo not going to allow that to happen. Does not have the range, though, to get that pick, so it's all going down on these zones. Nice direct there, but it's going to end up being a trade with 15 seconds left to go. 3v2, as now Owo holding on to the two zones. They were able to get the late pick onto that custom blaster, and with that and 20 penalty points, they may have enough to stay alive in this overtime.
Yeah, everything falls around how this overtime is played here, but knocked out right out the gate is not a good sign for Owo, as one by one takedown gets these picks they need and just secures that victory here, getting this first game into their favor.
Yeah, tough for Owo there. I think definitely one of the strong points for takedown was their ability to either get out and regroup quickly or just not be as Owo did. It took a considerable amount of time for them to get back into the action, whereas for takedown, they were holding the space, and either one player was staying back, hiding somewhere not too far, definitely not on the high ground. They were in the lower elevation area right before the zone to make sure that they could get back in and allow their team someone to jump to if they needed. So that stayability, that survivability, that sticking power, if you will, and gives them more team fights overall, gives them the opportunity to be sneaky, and for a player like Tufa, gives them some instant surprise splats with the directs that they were getting on that custom blaster.
Yeah, it was a good showing here from that first game, and it kind of sets the tempo of how we might see the remainder of this set. You know, it wasn't necessarily too dominant on one side. Both teams did really well against one another to try and hold out for as long as they did, and it potentially could have gone to Owo at the very end there. But now we're getting to our next round of strikes here. Flounder Heights, there we go. I was talking about it earlier. It struck down once and for all here from Takedown here, as we're going to see exactly what Owo wants to strike out next.
Yeah, Dark, you've spoken into existence. You're like, man, I couldn't believe Flounder Heights wasn't stricken. And they were like, oh, I got the stream open. Might as well appease the whims here of the casters. So Flounder Heights gone can be a very difficult stage, especially, you know, playing against somebody like a Carbon Roller. Carbon Roller famously, even going back to Splatoon 1, the original Splatoon, definitely the weapon that you would see most often there. And then we go back to Pendulum Swings the other way. This was a recently voted favorite. Falco, another caster, has been doing a community favorite sort of bingo card almost of modes and stages. This, if I remember correctly, was the favored Splat Zones, and I think also Turf War stage, now stricken from the record.
That's interesting to see, because at least from my small circle of this thing, you know, I always hear about Mahi being very awkward to play around and fight in, but hey, I guess it's definitely on the higher echelon of play here in the siege. But no, now with those maps being struck down by Takedown, we'll be seeing where Owo wants to take us next. And I do believe if Sendo, the website is right, we will be going to a Shipshape Cargo Company.
Okay, and for the record, I am with you here. I am not exactly a Mahi enjoyer. It is maybe I just fall in the water too much. Maybe I'm just too unwieldy, but instead we go to Shipshape Cargo Co. This has some elements of Manta Maria, so I'll use some of the analogies for that stage here, where it's very linear, very difficult to get back in the middle, and there's this low, thin corridor that gets you in, but there's these constant overhangs, these low high ground positions that you can get to by going up a wall or going up a ramp. It almost feels like a Port Mackerel in a sense, where there's this, you know, consistent low ground, but there's an underlying sort of consistent presence on the sides of you. You're always looking over your shoulder, making sure that nobody is on the side. And for weapons that have medium range that like to play on the high ground, I'm thinking something like the Tri-Strigger that we saw earlier, that could have an absolute field day on a stage like this one.
Yeah, no, I really like the specific unique geometry of this stage. It kind of caters to a lot of different play styles in a way that it also doesn't feel completely oppressive. There is routes and avenues to try and play around, you know, some of those mid-range weapons that you mentioned, Zach, like the stringer, but it also doesn't necessarily make it a blinding weakness either. I think the Shipshape Cargo Company is probably not the best designed map, but I think it's a very solidly designed map in my humble opinion.
Well, and that it's because, as you mentioned, it gives you something for everybody. There's low court areas, there's high ground, there's low walls that you can shark on, there's grates if you're a Splatling player, but the zone itself is a slightly larger zone, but it dips into both sides. It's not quite separated by a wall, but there are walls bisecting it basically that are getting right into the middle that you can peek around, and where a flurry of sub-weapons, splat and suction bombs, I would imagine, are bound to fly. So that's something that you'll have to watch out for if you are a lower range weapon or one that likes to play basically on top of the zone. But the trick is, when you lock down the zone, how effectively can you control the area in front of it? Because you can see beautiful map overlay here on your screen. There's the area in front, but there's also this huge lower court on the left that can be used for flanks. So it's going to be about having that great stage vision the entire game through.
Yeah, no, I think that the lower court as well is very crucial. If you're with this stage specifically, it sometimes gets hard to get pushed out, because with how it's set up, once you get to your side of the spawn, to your side of the map, it tends to be a little bit of a lockout heavy scenario. And I like that lower court area because it allows players to be able to try and circumnavigate some of that high pressure, especially in that funnel area between those two race points. I think that court is definitely a crucial key here if you're trying to defend.
Well, it's also going to be crucial for the members of OO is making sure that they can lock down some of the members of Takedown that gave them trouble. Tufa, we mentioned Arito on the bow. That is going to be another weapon that they have to be very careful of. So you have these different elements. It's always so difficult when a team has basically every range extreme seemingly covered, where no matter where you play on the stage, it's nowhere safe. Like, there's nowhere where you're going to say, okay, I'm completely, unless you're in your spawn effectively and they can't touch you, but then you're so far away from the objective that you can't have an impact on it. But they are going to need to have their players, especially I would think like Gold A, take the gaze away from a player like Tufa, distract them, make it difficult to hit those blaster shots with the rolls, get them out of position even, and there goes your main offensive edge. But OO, they're back up against the wall. It's game 2 out of a best of 3. You mentioned they don't want to be in the losers bracket this early in the event.
Yeah, no, playing to stay alive for at least one more game, one more match here in this set. We're seeing exactly how things kick off. A few minor changes here on the side of OO. Mert going to the different mini kit, as well as the dueling jet sculptures coming out as well from Zane. So we see how they're be leveraging on that on their end. But out the gate, takedown to its 2 picks is only looking to try and push OO back.
You saw it in the notes for this stage. Big bubble are going to be nice for the high ground, maybe even for the zone, as well as we see Zane getting a pick there onto Santo and looking for more on the jump in from Takedown with the special coming out. We see the super jump as well, trying to get the zone. Zane has been living on top of this high ground. Very difficult to get them down. And now Mert, who you mentioned, is on the Zimmy. They're basically trading off this responsibility of locking down the high ground, and I don't think there's been a solid response to it.
No, it's been a good attempts from OO to try and hold the line, but the way Takedown has been playing, they just know exactly how to play around these ideologies from OO and just be able to be in the position to completely counter them out. And now only 40 ticks remaining on the zone here. Takedown's in a really good position. Trying to go on the deep end to slow Takedown down at least a little bit, pull some attention away from the zone, but still not enough. Only finally the zone's gonna be able to be on contest, but it still swings back to Takedown.
Yeah, to your point, difficult to play in objective-based mode like it's a death match. You have to focus on the objective at some point, and maybe OO's done so now, but they're losing members fast as Tufa gets 2. It was a 4v2 or a 2v4, I should say, make it a 2v2, but OO surviving the onslaught there from the blaster player, and they will take the zone for the first time today.
Yeah, a good swing on their side to try and even the scales. 22 ticks remaining on the side of Takedown. That's a very solid hold on their end, but can OO match it? That's the bigger question. Gold using the reslider to get that player out of that corner, forcing that jump out as well, making that reposition required for Takedown as they're looking to try and push this line. Tufa gets 2 for 1 now with that special to complete their safe spaces there, but they do get taken out immediately. But these points are still running away for OO.
Yeah, and only just stopped at 30. Was wondering if they were going to fully take over the zone. Muffin with not enough time to lay down the ink on top of the zone with the Snipe Rider 5H. And Tufa's been doing it all, but is only one player. You have to have the follow-up, and namely the paint coming through from the rest of your squad, and they finally get that here takedown, getting the zone back. They have a pretty large penalty to chew through, which is going to buy OWO another team fight. Muffin back all the way through the back of that wall, will not survive the onslaught from Tufa, and this is the pit trap that they've fallen into. They jump in, and Tufa is waiting to take them down.
Yeah, Tufa really being a really good just flanker and skirmisher around these corners, around these odd angles. Mert trying to go and engage here, but gets taken down from Tufa once again on a rampage now. Takedown is being able to hold this very well against OWO as they get yet another forcing out that special, as now Takedown is in prime position to just potentially cruise the remainder of this game here.
Yeah, Tonfa with an underrated role here, really laying the groundwork for these weapons that don't have the ability to paint nearly as well to Blaster Tufa, which did just go down. So maybe an opening here for OO to come through. You can see Golde trying to take advantage of that, and here comes the Reef Slider as well. Maybe stopped early, though. Didn't see the explosion come out. Santo with a big pick there on the Zane. Can't follow it up, does follow it up, in fact, onto Mert. And the way that these players from Takedown have made something out of seemingly nothing is beautiful as they enter single digits.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that OWO can do at this point of the game. No one's up. They don't have any specials at the ready at the end there. It was just kind of a checkmate at that point onward with that wipeout at the end there. Takedown taking a very dominant second game and winning this set.
Equally in game 1 and game 2. Game 1, the story was the of Takedown to stay around even when they went 2 or 3 players down. I think the story for game 2, not dissimilar, but it's the way in which even when they know they're going to be splatted, they get a pick or an additional pick out of what would otherwise be a lost effort there. And it would have given OWO so many more opportunities to have these odd man advantages to break in and to focus on the zone, which seemed like they so rarely got to do, even at the very beginning when a player like Zane was showing off their skills on the Dually Squelcher. It was over the ramp. It was ramp to ramp, and there were no splatters hitting the zone right in the middle, which of course is the objective that they're focused on.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was very much, unfortunately for OWO, just a bit of a less focus on the objective, which kind of allowed Takedown to just slip away with so many points, with so many content. I can't remember as well what the exact scenario it was, but I think there was one point where it was Tufa hold, or was Takedown holding? It was Tufa going forward, getting those 2 picks while the zone was still in contest, which I think allowed them to keep that contest in favor of Takedown, to convert that into a hold, to allow that push and the momentum to keep going in their favor. And I think that just kind of signifies as to what little went wrong for OWO there.
Yeah, I think to your point, in a situation like that where you're down to the 4, and if you're a Blaster player, you kind of have to fish or cut bait at that point. You either need to super jump out and retain whatever portion of your special you've already built up for the retake, or you have to try and go for the hero play. And it's not always recommended, but Tufa made the most of it, evened it up to a 2v2, and did very well on that regard. But that was just the beginning of our action here. We're going to take a quick break before we get into our next round, but don't go anywhere. This is the Western Qualifier number 2 of the Splat World Series, and we'll be right back.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, between. My name is Dark, I'm here with Shiny Cutter Zach, and we're back with our next round for our Western Qualifier number 2. We will be seeing Poltergeist versus Non-Existence.
Should be a ton of fun. Lots of high-quality players on both of these rosters. You take a look at a team like Poltergeist, Minor, they've been playing for a while. I've known them since their play on Nightmare. You look at a player like Spexal, constantly in, this upper echelon conversation, which, of course, many players should be in an event like this one that's leading up to the Splat World Series finals. Cap and Zekrom rounding it out. You look on, a source like Sendo.Inc., they're in that Leviathan tier. Very, very difficult to play against. You take a look at their composition. It is pretty bread and butter. You have the Splattershot Jr. in there as well. It is kind of the only real unusual thing found, unless we do end up seeing the sloshing machine from Minor. Slosher, which did take kind of a back seat, but is still a very strong meta weapon. And then the Splatana Stamper from Spexal and Zekrom. Rounding things out on the Snipe Rider 5.8 should be a very fun loadout to play here. We'll see if we have a 52 even instead of a Splattershot Jr. from Cap. That would make things, Dark, even more meta than they already are.
Yeah, no. And then over on the side of Non-Existence here, we have Jared, Labby, Mar, and Jasmine. Jared breaking in either of the Nautilus potentially here. I don't remember off the top of my head what Labby usually plays here. Mar, of course, we have a pencil there, and the S-Blast coming from coming from Jasmine here. Looking at some more information here on my side. Cap, yeah, okay, so Cap will most likely, I'm getting lost in the sauce. There's so much information I'm trying to pull in right now.
Well, and what's interesting here, just looking at what we have is, the advent of Snipe Rider 5B, which is kind of a rarity to see. Labby with something like the 52 or 96, so we could have Gal v Gal compositions being played. Even 52 and 96 was not that uncommon, but Snipe Rider 5B, only a few dare to tread, I should say, in that direction, as opposed to the Snipe Rider 5H. An immediate stricken stages coming through from Poltergeist as Manta Maria, which we've mentioned before, and the first stricken stage from last set, Crableg Capital already out. For Non-Existent, a third stage that we mentioned, Urchin Underpass gone, and we go to Brine Water Springs, of all things, Dark.
Brine Water Springs, a notoriously small map, which I believe is the smallest zone in the game here. Very easy to even flip with something like a blaster. It ought to consider how small it is, Of course, it's a lot of the attention here, a lot of the pressure, and a lot of the presence here is going to be in your backlines and how well they can use the RAM to just leverage and control the entirety of mid.
This is such a simple stage in theory. You're either on a huge ramp or you're in mid. There's not really much in between. There are small court areas on either side of the zone, but they don't give you much. And if you're jumping down to them, you have to basically fall for a second or two from the ramp. It is going to be interesting to see how these two teams take it on as we get into winners quarterfinals here. We've entered best of 5 territory now. So we will have a bit more time for these teams to kind of feel each other out as we take a look at the compositions. It'll be an E-leader from Mar taking on Zekrom with the Sniper Rider 5H as Spexow goes over to the Sticker Splatana Stamper, which is always a solid pick for zones with that Booyah Bomb.
Yeah, I like a lot of these picks, especially on the side of non-existence here. But out the gate, Cappuccino just being hyper aggressive, getting those 2 picks to allow the remainder of Poltergeist to move up on this ramp. And especially knowing that that E-leader is on the enemy side, you had to make sure you shut down that E-leader as often as you can, or else they could just absolutely run away with the majority of this game. So Poltergeist is doing an extremely well job here, just out the gate, applying so much pressure against non-existence.
Yeah, Labby going to move forward and go into that flow aura state, getting the pick onto Zekrom here. Both teams seeing the raw power that the 52 gal is able to provide. We do have the NZAP once again. We have this juxtaposition between one team favoring the NZAP and the other with the Sniper Rider 5H as Cappuccino is going to take one down, and that'll be the zone returning back to Poltergeist as they get set. And this is kind of the mid game when you're on this stage, is for how long can you keep the returning team on their ramp and coming back in. And so far, Poltergeist has done a good enough job to get rid of that penalty.
Yeah, I mean, even trying to leverage what's it called, tactical alert from non-existence here, you're still struggling against this front line that Cappuccino and Spexow are holding here. Finally, one player goes down from Poltergeist, maybe a potential possibility to try and get a push going on their side, make that 2 players down, but 1 player going down from non-existence. The zone is still under the control for the Poltergeist. Labby trying to do anything they can to break this back line here, and that they do. The zone is in contest here, but not in either's control, only finally going into non-existence favor.
Yeah, Cappuccino surviving the onslaught of that triple splashdown as well. So they are stopped for the moment, and we'll have to see how Poltergeist plays on the more defensive side of things as they try to get back in. Non-existence playing offensively, holding that zone down, and they are being pretty aggressive. They're trying to buy room for their E-leader, but it's not exactly going great. Labby, 1 HP. They lose their NZAP in the process, and the Custom Blaster late to the party. There's nobody around anymore, so they're basically waiting for someone from Poltergeist to come back in. Despite the troubles they've done their job. They've held them away from the zone, and it's taken a minute now as Poltergeist is finally able to regroup.
Yeah, and I mean, this is exactly the position you want to be if you're non-existent. You have the E-leader in mid to be able to cover so many angles, to apply so much pressure to sort of disencourage Poltergeist from taking these drops, the popular drops here. Only now they're finally able to break the front line at least a little bit, but non-existence is still able to hold it strong here to keep its momentum going, to flip the script from what we see the first half of this game and keep Poltergeist locked up on their ramp.
Yeah, and this is the ideal situation when you are running that E-leader, that longest weapon available to you, holding onto that charge, sitting on top of the box, and having the enemy team not really able to focus on them too much because they have to review what's exactly in front of them. That's the lead going over to non-existence, as that huge penalty goes down. Flavy gets taken down, not able to survive in that splash wall. Miner 2v1ing J-Rod. There's J-Rod will fall and getting a second there onto Jasmini. So now finally it took the lead being flipped over, but Poltergeist will have the zone back, and they don't have as China penalty. What the heck is going on as Cappuccino and Levy are not partaking in this team affair?
It was a true to form 3v3 as the 2 flankers were sharking in the backline. They're only finally be able to call it out here. But at the end of the day, though, Poltergeist is holding very strong. They were finally able to break through that E-leader, and once, as we saw there, because of that E-leader not being able to get set up true and proper again, they, like the beginning of the first half of this game, Poltergeist was able to push them back, set up their shop end ramp, and just deny them from the majority.
What looked like it would be an emphatic game 1 victory here. You allow, and maybe as a result, we get to see how the E-leader composition was going to play out for the side of non-existence here. They get them into the right position, and they do a decent job of locking Poltergeist out. But at some point, it's too little too late. That still cracks me up, seeing the 2 flankers. It's like, the picture of the person holding up the gun, the astronaut in the moon, saying like always has been, and taking them out. We'll have to look out for moments like that in the remaining games again. Best of 5 now, no longer best of 3, but flashes of brilliance for non-existence. Poltergeist able to hold it down, and they did, I would say, overall look like the better team in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, the Poltergeist saw what was being brought to the table from non-existence, recognized that the E-Leader was the troublemaker, and realized that, hey, as long as we keep that E-Leader in check, as long as we keep them out of the game, we can just pretty much run away with this game. And there was a moment where they didn't actually have that happen. The E-Leader was able to once take control. It was looking pretty scary for them as they were stuck on their side of the map. But once again, that E-Leader got knocked out from mid, the leader got pushed back, they're able to take control of the game again, and things just went back into their wake.
Yeah, and a player like Miner on that Slosher. The Slosher is not as extravagant or as flashy of a weapon. Yes, you can curve your shots like you're in the Matrix, but it is not the high mobility weapon that the 52 is. It is not the high flying and even longer range weapon that any variant of the Splatana Stamper is, but it is consistent. It gives you exactly what you need for splat zones, and we saw a couple of 2-down splats there coming out from Miner in tandem with a player like Spexow, who did a great job of locking things down on that stickers variant. We'll have to see if any compositional changes come out from either side, if we'll see that E-Leader coming through again from non-existence, as we see these strikes come out. Bluefin Depot and Mincemeat Metalworks, I would agree with that. Those are not two of my more favorite stages to play either. I don't know how they would be in the meta necessarily, as I hardly ever see them, but two not community favorite, I would say, zone stages now completely out of possibility.
Yeah, and as we're seeing what non-existence wants to try and take this second game here, of course, to re-highlight things once again, this is a best of 5, so there's a little bit more wiggle room to maybe potentially try out something experimental or go with something tried and true. We are opting to go with something tried and true here as they pick Robo Ramen as the second game here. And I think Robo Ramen is a good pick here, considering it's another one of those maps where it's just very flexible in its make and in its design and its geometry, allowing a lot of different weapon types to really thrive here.
Yeah, it has, again, so much that you would want for different player types. For anchor players, you do have to play more carefully. The selling point for them is the low walls that you can hop on and that give you a great overview of the stage, because again, the zone is going to be at basically, not quite, but basically the highest point, because there's this entire, I've called it once, the seedy underbelly of this stage, this network of tunnels and alleyways that your flanker players could go around on, more prevalent in something like tower control, where one of the checkpoints is in that seedy underbelly. But if you're a player that is like a Carbon Roller or 52 that can pop out at a moment's notice and get a splat, take somebody by surprise, that also plays well for you. I'm very interested to see how a weapon like the Stamper will play to it, probably making use of that range, because you do typically want to play just behind where the zone is. And there's our answer to the question. The E-Leader coming back, as we see once again Zekrom on that Sniper Rider 5H.
Yeah, nothing really changing too much here across these past two games here. These seem pretty confident with just the main gist of how their team and their weapon lineup wants to play here out the gate. Non-existence does get the first pick here, but can it convert into something properly, into a good hold here is the bigger question here. Tactical are out the gate once again from non-existence to try and leverage that aggressiveness in their favor here, but they opt to just play it slow, play it steady, allow Poltergeist to get some space as they get their own momentum jarring to get built up.
Yeah, this is what I mean for your anchor players. You have these very small obstacles, these cushions or boxes that you have to play around, or as we see a nice slap by Specs out, you face constant aggression from these mid-range weapons that can poke you out. Spec poked out themselves, having to fall back a little bit, but Poltergeist was able to take the zone first. They will lose it now to non-existence in, and Miner trying to get the team back in with that triple ink strike. In addition to the pick there from Zekrom, that's going to give them an opening, kind of throwing everything in the kitchen sink. That's all 4, I think, specials coming through. Maybe you didn't need that much, but it does for now secure Poltergeist the zone.
Yeah, a lot of heavy specials being committed here to try and at least push non-existence back, not necessarily claiming out mid just yet, which I don't think is too heavy of a price to toll, in my humble opinion here, as there's still all this fighting here on the enemy ramp. You're still trying to at least maintain control here as non-existence is still slowly trickling in one by one, but they're still able to contest it. They're still able to fight here on the zone, finally able to get the zone back under control for non-existence here, as now they're looking to try and push Poltergeist back.
Yeah, Jasmine was looking to go on a rampage. They had entered that alleyway and were trying to enter a 1v2 after getting that pick onto Miner. It's Lavi and Cappuccino once again. They're a little closer to the objective this time, but not by much. It seems like they're either seeking each other out or just winding up in the same part of town as Spexal. It feels like they've been the main one to keep the members of Non-Existence in back. Lavi now finally getting close enough, but it's not going to be enough. And now they're outranged again. So Spec mastering this ability to kind of bait the players of Non-Existence in and then use their maximum range to secure the splat.
Yeah, and it was working well, but suddenly 2 picks going out against them means that Non-Existence was able to get control of the zone here, but Cappuccino being the last player standing gets 3 players from Non-Existence as Poltergeist is able to just come back immediately. What should have been a good solid hold here, a solid swing of momentum back into Non-Existence's own favor here, just kind of depleted out of nowhere, and now they're back against the wall once again here.
Yeah, what did we say about Tufa? You don't want to have to rely on hero plays, but they're certainly nice when they happen, and that's exactly what we saw there. As we see 1 pick coming out from Mara. Cappuccino protected by this splash ball as the penalty points are going to expire, and a slight 1 point extension of the lead going to come through before Non-Existence and takes it back. But this has been Non-Existence's issue the entire time. Yes, they can stall, and yes, they can take the zone back for a couple of seconds, give that penalty point over, but there's no longevity in that. There's no staying power, which Miner and the rest of the team are helping to secure for Poltergeist as they force Non-Existence to lose 3 members.
Yeah, and I think also on top of that as well as that is the fact that you're looking at Poltergeist, they have the Killer Wheel, they have the Booyah Bomb, they have the Ink Strikes, they have a lot of area control to keep Non-Existence in check. Not even specifically for the E-Leader, but just to keep them sort of bundled away from the zone here. This constant pressure here, the Booyah Bomb being used to potentially keep the control of the zone, or at least in a contested state here, as Non-Existence is forced to throw everything at the table here to try and push Poltergeist back. And that they do, but they still lose their own players. They still commit their own specials, and Non-Existence here finally able to make a break against Poltergeist.
Yeah, and you want to enable a player like Labby Miner with just enough room there. You're worried one more jump might send them careening off the edge, and Miner will fall. So it's kind of trade city here at the end of things. Jasmine, that's been their play style as well. They get 1, but then they lose out immediately after, where Cappuccino is trying to give their team as much room as possible. However, for Non-Existence, they don't have a penalty to worry about. They're going to get 1 now, as it's the Booyah Bomb coming through. And Poltergeist, yes, they use their specials in somewhat quick succession, but it doesn't feel like it's all at the same time for these painting specials among them. It's a Booyah Bomb into something else like the Triple Ink Strike after the fact.
A good special staggering there to keep this momentum going into their favor, and it just allows them to continue this dominant hold. Once again, 3 players down from Non-Existence, and Poltergeist just moves in very quickly. Cappuccino on this right snipe area to allow them to be able to just hold the line until that timer ticks down to 0, taking this second game into their favor.
And lots of mirrors from game 1. In fact, I think the cadence of the game matched very close. Definitive period where Non-Existence had held on to the zone, and we got to see when they have a fair amount, 30-45 seconds of time with the zone. And it seems like every time Poltergeist has the patience with 3 of their members to hang on. Cappuccino, the one we're spectating, would be that 4th member that does not necessarily need to wait for their team. They go seeking out Levy. They go hiding in the different alleyways, but the rest of the team, you can see how bunched up they are, and that makes it difficult to catch somebody out in a one-on-one engagement, which in a general, they were consistently winning more so than Non-Existence, and as a result, they go up by 2 games.
Yeah. Now at match point for this set, Non-Existence still has 1 more opportunity to at least try and stay alive for this set here, but with how these past 2 games have been so far, Poltergeist has just been kind of calling out a lot of what Non-Existence has been doing here, kind of catching them in their own wake to be able just to keep them in check, keep them in line, and prevent them from being able to set up with that game plan. Especially with this lower weapon like E-Leader, you're gonna be struggling a lot with some of the not necessarily like the fastest weapon in this game's lineup, like the 52, but you know, it's still fast enough to just keep them in check. But out the gate, as I'm trying to set up this next game here, 2 bans coming out in the way from Poltergeist as they strike out Scorch, and Wall for World. So we'll be seeing what Non-Existence wants to take us next.
Yeah, Scorch, another stage a la Museum de Alfonsino, much more common to see that for Rainmaker or Clam Blitz. Wahoo World, don't really see it a ton. You do, I would think, see it more so for zones in a lot of cases, but it is another one of those stages where mid is a pain to get to. You're very far away, and the zone itself is quite small. Not dissimilar from the stage we just saw, Robo Ramen, in the sense that your long range players, if they're right on the zone or near the zone, they have some low walls that they can hang around on. Taking a look at Non-Existence's pick here, it'll come through as being Mahi Mahi Resort. So despite our personal sentiments, Dark, on the stage, it remains a competitive player's dream stage, it seems. And we will go there, of course, featured with 40 points being scored required to unlock the full potential or the full real estate of the stage, if you will. That portion that is in dark gray will be unsubmerged from the water and become available. But the other highlight of this stage is just how many walls, obstacles, boxes, pillows there are for players like Mar potentially on that E-leader to hide behind and maybe be a little bit more elusive.
Yeah, I like a lot of the, not necessarily vertical geometry in terms of like actual height, but the vertical geometry in terms of like cover there is here in Mahi Mahi Resort. You have a lot of just like, as you mentioned, Zach, just a lot of these walls and boxes to be able to hide around if you're a backline, but as well if you're like a frontlining skirmisher. You know, I'm pretty sure our beloved 52 player would absolutely adore this stage here to play around with and be a nuisance with here. But as we get ready here, we see exactly if there's gonna be any switches up here from either side. We do see the E-leader get swapped out in favor of the pencil here.
Yeah, so Double Bubble is going to be the name of the game for Non-Existence, and in tandem with that, as you mentioned, they are going to need the Snipe Rider for that tactic lure. So a mirror match in that regard. It's going to be an early get of the zone here for Non-Existence, and as they move forward, and this is their strategy. That was a huge part of it, is they have to be the first one to the zone. They have to be the first one to cap the zone, and thereby you get to use the bunker, the reprieve of those big bubblers. Now, I think, doing very well despite a little bit of resistance and even getting everybody except for Specta, who they finally clean up, a delayed wipe as Non-Existence and gets out to their hottest start yet.
Yeah, a great opening for Non-Existence here. Water level is dropped. The map has opened up quite a bit now, both in favor for Non-Existence and Poltergeist's sake here. As we do see out the gate, Triple Ink Strikes comes out to potentially contest the zone. The Killer Whale comes out to try and scatter the members here. Booyah Bomb comes out to disrupt the backline, but the Bubbler on the zone allows Non-Existence to just maintain control here. But one by one, they do unfortunately fall, and Poltergeist finally takes control of the zone here.
Yeah, it feels like it marks one of, if not the best pushes that Non-Existence has had yet. And these two teams are very different. Poltergeist, their specials are very ink heavy. They want to be using them to get entry. Booyah Bomb, Triple Ink Strike, things of that nature. Non-Existence, it's been the opposite. They've had the Wave Breaker. They've had, of course, these double bubbles now. It's been about taking space through non-inking means, and they're going to have to combat Poltergeist, who, for example, just throughout the Triple Ink Strike, Cappuccino with the protection there from the Splash Ball, and J-Rod going to go down as a result of the Booyah Bomb. So not even necessarily needing to use those inking specials on the zone itself. It is a somewhat small zone, and that will allow Poltergeist to survive the first oncoming attack back from Non-Existence.
Yeah, I mean, now you're setting up for a proper hold here as Non-Existence is trying to get this next team fight engaged here. Jasmine pops the bubble to allow them safe passage over to the ramp here. Two players get picked out from Poltergeist, which is a huge swing for Non-Existence as they're looking to try and just keep this momentum pushing forward. They use a tactical to allow Jasmine to play recursively here to just be a nuisance under this ledge, as now Non-Existence has a probably a good chunk of mid painted up in yellow as Poltergeist is looking to try to find ways to engage.
I mean, this is the home of Slayer players, especially blasters. If there is a slight drop down, that is exactly where you want them to be set up. If you can trade out with people, that's exactly where you want them to be set up. Levy is not going to just sit there. They're going to take what space is available. Now having to fight Miner, they actually are able to turn 180 and win that fight, but they are weakened, and as a result, Cappuccino is going to take them down. So the momentum stays in favor of Poltergeist, and this can be a difficult stage to get out of what is admittedly a pretty open court area for spawn, but a spawn area nonetheless with not that many entry points back to mid.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we're seeing Jasmine to allow the rest of their team to just push up forward safely. And it does work in their favor, but having to change the other bubble to try and at least contest the zone a little bit does seem a little bit costly for it to get a proper swing in your favor if you can just, I don't know, booyah bomb it or try strike it in return. You know, three does go down for Poltergeist though, as non-existence takes control of the zone and looking to try and get their own hold set up here, but there's only 1 minute 30 seconds remaining and there's only a 4-point differential right now.
Yeah, another day, another 52 that's in the Float Aura state and moving like a madman as they take space with ease. Now even locking down the area. That'll be that Zimmy trying to use that Toxic Mist to make sure that these side areas, these side boxes or courts can't be used. Miner yet again going to fall. They've had trouble winning these 1v1s against Levy as we get into single digits here. They're inside the big bubbler and they'd entered the Float Aura state, but it will not be enough as Poltergeist desperate to make something happen against a non-existence in team who did a great job of counterpicking into this one. And for their work, they earn a knockout and their first game of this match, securing us a game 4.
Yeah, I mean, with the setup here, non-existence knew exactly what their game plan was going to be, how to leverage their strengths against Poltergeist. And even though they had, if you look at it on paper, the extra painting power capabilities of not just their weapons, but as well as their specials, you know, it still was Poltergeist, non-existence at the end here to be able to push back Poltergeist and keep them in check. They had the past 2 games here to really learn what to do, how to play against them here, maybe looking for a bit of a slow cooker saga here for this set, but now they're going to be in a bit of a little bit of trouble, in my opinion, here, because now they're going to be the ones getting banning the stages, as now we see what Poltergeist wants to take this next set to.
Reminds me of Splatoon Raiders in a way. I've been playing that, of course. Happy Splatoon Raiders weekend to all those who celebrate. But this does feel like Poltergeist is kind of the power tank, and we have non-existence in, which is more the tactics tank. They are more methodical. It is not necessarily the raw damage output that Poltergeist has been consistently bringing and been able to win team fights as a result of. I think they're playing a little bit more methodically, and with that comes a bit more setup time, not as much freedom. You have to play according to the script, which in game 3 was you have to take the zone first. You have to have these big bubblers in the perfect position, and you have to play perfectly to stop them from coming back from mid, as we see some stages stricken here. Undertow Spillway and Museum de Alfonsino gone, so we will not be returning back to Museum de Alfonsino in this match as we await Poltergeist pick. We are down to 15 available stages, and of them, it is going to be Umami Ruins, to which we alluded to earlier, but have not yet seen as our venue for Game 4.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier, Zach, Umami Ruins being another one of the few dual zones maps, and of course, the shock of no one who's heard me say it so far, one of my own personal favorites as well because of that dual zone factor, especially with how this specific setup is. You do have that middle stack raised to completely just make a barrier between the 2 walls. You know, some teams end up actually playing a very funny game of just ring around the rosy, constantly going around one another.
Yes. You read my mind. It is unbelievable. I mean, and for anchor players, you know, a couple places you ideally want to set up. There's this great cylinder. It gives you a little bit more room than something like Mahi, where you're hiding behind small obstacles. It allows you to reach mid, obviously the closer zone, and if you have the long enough range, a bit of zone 2, but the ideal place where you want to enable your backline to be is right in the middle. You can see where that pillow is, this raised platform that gives you the perfect overview, gives you enough range to reach the opposite anchor player that's on that other cylinder. And this, again, I've said it a lot, but there are a lot of stages that we've gone to that are very difficult to break out of. You can either try going left, drop down to that lower court, but it's very difficult and very predictable to get to, or you can break out of that ramp, and you have to kind of make a stand as a team if you're going to do that. So we'll see if these teams are close enough in skill level in this game for to play that ring around the rosy that we mentioned, or if one team overwhelms the others. We take a look at the composition. Looks pretty identical to me as we see Mar returning for a second game in a row with that Snipe Rider.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it makes sense as to why they like to leave the E-leader, especially on this stage in particular, with it, how fast Poltergeist has been playing. You don't really want to give them any more advantages at this stage of this set here. But it is a bit of an even trading game here so far. Both teams getting one player down on each side. We do have Tactical online for non-existence here to try and force team fights into their favor. But at the end of the day here, the opening goes in favor of Poltergeist.
Yeah, Spec, I think in that situation was a little bit close for comfort. They want to play maybe a bit further back. And we saw, of course, Laby versus Cappuccino, which has been one of the consistent points. And now you can see Poltergeist saving their triple ink strike. They have plenty of coverage on the zone. So as soon as that big bubbler comes out, they're going special for special here. That's allowed them to keep the momentum up. Now the fight had filtered over to that lower court area we alluded to earlier, namely the 52s going at it, but Mar with enough space to take down Miner, and this might be, and it will be, non-existence claiming the zone for the first time this game.
Yeah, a good flip and a good swing of momentum for non-existence here. Now they're set up here on this platform. Mar being the backline they need to be to get a good overwatch between the entirety of this map here. The one thing to keep in mind is that there's not really a good flanking opportunity to get out, as you mentioned earlier, Zach. So being able to set up on either that mid-platform or on this box here close to spawn means that you can control so much space, so much territory, and that's exactly what non-existence is doing. They aren't playing too aggressively, at least not until right now anyways, but they're just controlling space, zoning it out, playing the neutral game, only finally being taken out by Cappuccino, who went on the back line.
Yeah, and I had the same thought about a slight hitch in the aggression. They were waiting like 3-5 seconds longer than I probably would have or thought to get in. The same strategy applied where Poltergeist used the triple ink strike to break that big bubbler as soon as it came down. But now the 1v1s are coming back, and it's going to be Specs out losing out in a 1v2. That big bubbler providing additional protection here, and it's really worked out for non-existence. You can see that it feels like a big factor in their staying power. Now, when that's gone, the overwhelming power, as we mentioned earlier, of Poltergeist comes through. That was an emphatically one team fight. They retained the zones the entire time, so their Poltergeist is gone, and they are extending that lead.
Yeah, and this is where we start up in the danger zone for non-existence. You only have 20 ticks remaining on the zone here. You don't have any specials online, and you're running out of time. You have the player advantage here, so you really gotta try and push everything to the best of your ability here. We do see another player going down one by one. Poltergeist is losing ground here as they take control of the zone, and that's the delayed wipeout. You're still alive for this set, but now the question is, how do you hold it this time around?
Yeah, we don't want to have a regression because, again, in the first two games, it was non-existence and maybe had one solid push that lasted for a long time, and the rest of the time, it was just poking at the zone to give a penalty to Poltergeist, and then they couldn't hold it down. Now we'll see how they come back in as Poltergeist, trying to take an advantageous team fight here. Spec using that Booyah Bomb to push forward here. Will it get broken? They do survive just barely. The Booyah Bomb maybe not going to get as much of an effort as they want, but a pretty solid hold here by non-existence to get Poltergeist forced all the way back. And now this time, they're the ones who got their penalty, and they're threatening to steal the lead.
Yeah, we do have triple ink strike though in favor in the pocket for Poltergeist here, as well as the killer whale to try and push back, break the line from non-existence here. One zone's gonna go in their favor here, and potentially the other one, Poltergeist, just runs through, tears through non-existence here as they take control of the zone here. But they have a heavy amount of penalty points here. It's not out of the game just here for non-existence here, but cards are starting to stack in against both teams here.
Yeah, you probably have 1.5 team fights, I would wager, as we see the Booyah Bomb coming out early and often from Specs out, trying to catch somebody on that back cylinder. Mar will get out just in time. Now 50 seconds left to go. Laby broken through. Spec not able to get out timely enough as Cappuccino jumps back in. The big bubbler down. Jasmini not able to react to Cappuccino in time. Looking for the second on the Laby as they retreat into the big bubbler. So with just over 30 seconds left to go, teams trading each other out. They've both had a decent amount of staying power in mid, but so far, non-existent still holding that lead.
Yeah, this next team fight is going to be the one that really dictates how the remainder of this match is going to go here. One player down out the gate already for Poltergeist here. Cappuccino dueling on the left-hand side, taking a 2v1. Throws down for a 1-for-1 trade. We do see the triple ink strikes, though, come in to try and at least contest the zone as best they can for Poltergeist. But non-existent is the one who takes control of the zone here, as we do see the 5-second diner on the clock here. We will be going potentially into an over... No! I lost track of who was in control of the zone here. Non-existent takes that second game.
That is the devastating, or depending on which team you are, relieving points about it being a 2-zone stage, is you have to have control of both of those zones in order to take it. So as a result, non-existence has forced a game 5 in this match, where Poltergeist, I think even in this past game 4, in just raw team fights, just looking raw head-to-head matchup, They looked like the stronger team. But back to this point about the tactics aspect of it, when non-existence is using their big bubblers, having the survivability to retreat into it, it's allowed Levy to have better luck in fights against Cappuccino. It's given them a better way to take down players like Spec and Miner. It's all culminated into this. Okay, it's almost like game 1 and 2. We're learning, and now we're applying what we've learned, and we've earned a game 5 as a result.
Yeah, it's exactly why I love best of 5 scenarios in general, because you do get that opportunity to learn, to apply, to adapt to these matches, to these sets as the game goes on longer. Because if it was the best of 3 in the first, if this was a first round game, it would have gone to 2-0 for Poltergeist, and we would have moved on. We wouldn't be seeing this amazing comeback from non-existence here. And now, once again, it's gonna be a question of like, what does Poltergeist wants to do? They're gonna be the ones picking the stage once again, so the cards are gonna be stacked against non-existence out the gate for this 5th game.
So take a look at what non-existence will strike. Hagglefish Market gone. That's been another favorite. It was originally when Splatoon 3 came out. It shifted more so to a tower control stage recently, which I find really interesting. The map itself hasn't really changed, but the community sense of how it's best played has changed over time. Still, I consider one of the quote-unquote final destination stages that Splatoon 3 has to offer. That brings us down to, I think, 13 available stages, with Umami Ruins being used. Robo Ramen has been played before. Mako Mart in the previous match, I believe, was banned pretty early and will be stricken here. These teams kind of thinking about it. That leaves just a mess of stages left. You have things like a Mincemeat Metalworks. No, that one's stricken. You have like a Brine Water Springs. You have a Humpback Pump Track. You have a Inkbot Art Academy, which would be really interesting. And then some kind of oddballs like a Marlin Airport, which I do very occasionally see. So this could really be, anything from Poltergeist. I'm so interested to see what they go with. And it will be Barnacle and Dime as our final selection for this match.
Yeah, Barnacle Dime, more of a community classic at this point here. It is a wide and flat map, but again, a bit of a highlight of this entire set is that it can also be difficult to come back from if you were pushed back all the way to the side of to your side of the map here. Lockouts being a crucial key point to keep in mind here.
Yeah, the anchor players, they almost play on the sides, like the very far left or right extremes where they have a wall protecting them. That's where I see a lot of them opt to play, because directly behind the zone, the elevation dips just a little bit. And so it's almost like a mini alleyway. And then to your point, it can be very, very difficult because you just have this L shape, this elbow coming out of your spawn, but that lower court area feeds pretty easily into it. And even though you have the low ground, it can be pretty easy to keep a team in there. So I would imagine skirmishes will be breaking out. It's a relatively wide open mid portion of the stage, and there's not these crazy elevation stages changes of other stages on Barnacle and Dime. So this seems like a great venue for a game 5 scenario. Let's see if non-existence can complete the reverse sweep, or if Poltergeist will hold strong and stay on the winner side of the bracket. Spoiler alert, winner of this game will take on Content Cat, who was able to win their winners round 2 match 3-1. Let's see, as we do see pretty even compositions once again, not any major changes as the double bubble strat continues.
Yeah, double bubble still on the table here, which actually might be even more useful on this stage in particular here. But the Poltergeist does get the first pick and the first push into their favor here as they're trying to push non-existence back bit by bit, but they do get another trade in on their side. Tactical online from either side here. You see the first bubble being popped on the zone, and non-existence just takes it just like that.
Yep, and bubble this time is used on the zone. They're using this toxic mist almost like a secondary bubble, and in fact, the second bubbler basically went where that toxic mist landed. Levy able to trade out with Spec. They had, I think, a bit more time to try and get the pick, but were not able to, and as a result, Poltergeist going to have the best staying power in this one. Miner forced all the way back, has been the consistent force on that Slosher, has almost been playing the Slosher like a support weapon, because you have the Sniper Rider 5H, but you need the backup from that triple ink strike, as Zekrom's going to go down. Levy getting another one there onto Spec, and that will help to force things as non-existence and cleans up and takes the zone right back.
Yeah, I mean, non-existence is really shining through here and really showing just the prowess of their own tactical minds here. Taking it through Game 5, the first opening may not have still been the cleanest for them. They were just able to come back here and really push Poltergeist to the limits here, pushing them back all to the side of the map here. And now, they flip the script of the first game here, just keeping them locked out, keeping them in check, preventing them from being able to move up forward at all.
I mean, that was the textbook splat for a slosher player. You slosh over the wall, and you're able to get the splat as a result. And look at how grouped up Poltergeist is. They are basically rolling as a unit. Miner going to enter the Flow Aura state with that pick on the J-Rod, and they are keeping non-existence in back. So a decent lead set up for the team trying to make a reverse sweep, as Levy also gets a pick there onto Spec. Was looking and got the assist on another. Gets basically 2.5 onto Cappuccino. They will survive throughout all of that. And yet again, Spec remains, and they will jump out. But the splats continue as Levy going on an absolute tear. Has the Killer Whale 5.1. Miner backed into a wall. Cappuccino will be the next casualty. Miner falls in addition to that. How many splats are we up to for Levy?
An unstoppable force here for non-existence that only can really become online on the 5th game after learning tried and true how your opponents play. And now they're set up extraordinarily well, beautifully well here against Poltergeist, giving them the taste of their own medicine and just keeping them in check here. Only 15 ticks remaining on the zone here. We do see Specs out, force out the Booyah Bomb to try and contest the zone at least a little bit. Stacking that with the triple ink strike does keep the zone into their favor, but the damage has been done. 3 ticks remaining on their side. Non-existence just shoved Poltergeist down.
You have to take whatever small victories you can, and surviving in this game is what Poltergeist needs to come back from that onslaught. Spec trying to get a glimpse of that. The selling point for them is they didn't have much of a penalty to chew through, so 1 or 2 team fights will win you the game if you can hold on to it, but they lose Spec early. They have the tactical cooler down. Did Spec get it? As Miner is going to get the pick on the Jasmine, looking for another one, but is facing the staunch opposition from that big bubbler. Spec is going to have the Booyah Bomb online to try and keep things down further. Cappuccino taking down J-Rod, and a penalty applied, so that will buy yet another team fight, as now Poltergeist trading out, but this is going to ultimately favor non-existence if it continues.
Yeah, I mean, with 1-for-1 trades, you're always going to be the winner if you're the one who's currently in the lead here. So non-existence is more than happy to take these trades, or even try and convert them to even their own pushes of their own making here. That's a delayed wipe out there for Poltergeist. Non-existence here has free reign to take the majority of mid here and try and set up for this next incoming hold here as we enter the last minute of not just this game, but of this set.
That was the drop down of death, by the way. I think 3 or 4 people fell mid-animation, mid-falling, as we see now the fight going over to the beginning of the zone. Miner trying to get some revenge there onto Levy, and they will with the exceptional range. Just below 30 penalty points for Poltergeist to chew through in these final 40 seconds, and the tactical is out. So they are saying, come get us, because our team fight is happening now. Miner sitting on these triple ink strikes with 30 seconds remaining. 5 penalty points to go as non-existence, and this is the pitfall of this stage. You have this tough spawn area to break out of. 13 points to go on the zone. Cappuccino going to trade out with J-Rod. Now Labby trying to come in. Can anyone get to the zone in time? They lose control, but the triple ink strikes are there. The lead going through, and that will be the hold for Poltergeist. Almost a storybook ending of a reverse sweep for non-existence, and gets cut short by 3 points as Poltergeist in the waning seconds completes the knockout and stops the reverse sweep to move on to winner semis.
Oh man, really pushing it to the limit. Non-existence almost took that storied run of just completely getting pushed over by Poltergeist in the first 2 games to just pivoting on that 3rd game to bring it to Poltergeist to their limits at the end here. But unfortunately, just were not able to clutch it up here, especially with this rampage that Labby went on earlier in this game.
That was just an insane, I mean, shout out has to go to Ellie for catching that entire sequence. Beautiful spec cam work, not something that could be easily achieved with auto cam or with a layman spec cam operator. So unfortunately, we come back to another theme of this stream so far this tournament, which has been hero plays. Yes, they're nice when they happen. Yes, they can buy you a team fight win, but they are not the be-all, end-all in every game. If they happen, say, in the middle of the game as opposed to last second, there's no guarantee that you make it through. And I'm so excited that this is double elimination, because that is not, of course, the end of the day yet for non-existence. They will move down, and it looks like they will be taking on Healthy Diet Food Groups in losers bracket round 1. You can see that there. The other matches in that losers bracket section already completed, as Thriller Bark beating Owo, so that'll be the end of Owo's day. Vamos a la Playa with a 2-0 victory over Happy Birthday Asher. They will await the winner, actually, of non-existence and Healthy Diet Food Groups. But on the winner's side, the number 1 seeded Eternus going to be taking on the 5th seeded Ascension in the semis. And as we mentioned before, Poltergeist, coming out of that super close Game 5 match, will be taking on Content Cat, one of the bigger team stories of the Splatoon 3 North American League. And may I just mention, talk about stories and talk about Content Cat. Dark, what about the possibility of seeing Basil on Content Cat as they are listed among their rostered players?
Yeah, to pull back the curtain at least a little bit here, me and Zach were talking, we were just checking the rosters before we started up for our stream today, and before, like, I think maybe 5 or 10 minutes the tournament actually started, Basil was not on that team list at all, and so to see her name just pop up out of nowhere was just really threw a big surprise, not necessarily a wrench, but just like a fun surprise in all things, and that's a match I'm very much looking forward to, but not a match we'll be seeing just yet, as I do believe the first match we are going to will be Eternus versus Ascension.
Yeah, gonna be taking a look here. It's gonna be Eternus, the number 1 overall seed, and you can see why this is an absolute powerhouse roster. And look at the weapons that they play. Antoine on the Mint Decavitator has kind of taken over from the Splatana Wiper players as being one of the premier other mid-range options, alongside what Reiki is going to have, which is that Splatana Stamper, that high-flying action that the Zipcaster can bring, and the superb maneuverability of the Burst Bomb, which also is featured on Kiki's primary weapon, the S-Blast 91. One of those weapons where there are still a few dedicated players despite the couple rounds of changes that it has received. And rounding it out is Jay, a notable backline player with that Sniper Rider 5H and even a Pocket ZNF splatter scope. If you feel like you're in need of some triple ink strikes, this is going to be a super strong team. They won their first match of the day 3-1 over Takedown, and we'll have to see how they do against their next opponent, which will be Ascension.
Yeah, Ascension here, another name to know and love here in the scene here. To start things off, we have Sam going with the Splash-O-Matic here, a very solid, very well-rounded weapon that is pretty, in my humble opinion, I think is the epitome of just a jack-of-all-trades weapon here. To follow things up here, we do have Shiva, who can either go the 52 cal or this I almost said Stamper. That's not a Stamper. That's a Decapitator. What's my brain saying? the Splatana Decapitator here. Good, just dueling weapons, good frontline weapons to just be able to poke down and apply a lot of high pressure here. And of course, Mirage as your backline of choice with either, popular backline weapons such as the Pencil or the Heavy Splat Link, but looks like could maybe potentially pivot over to the Dapple Duel. It's not a weapon we see too much these days anymore. And of course, to round things out here, we have Cool Ace with either the Custom Blaster or the Luna Blaster, or as well as the 96 cal.
Yeah, so going to be interesting. Ascension, of course, the lower seed in their previous match against Thriller Bark. They win that one 3-1, so they move on and have the honor of taking on the number 1 overall seed. We are, not that far off from having our first match to decide the first of our 3 teams that will qualify for the Splat World Series finals today. We will have winners finals coming through. We'll have a grand finals, of course, but that is the story, as we are looking for the 3 Western teams remaining that will qualify as we get in to the stage strike stage.
Yeah, this is the moment to see exactly what kind of tempo, what kind of set we're going to be seeing here between these 2 teams. Eternus being the one to get the first strikes here on the stage, and we see exactly what they're looking to already get out the way. And honestly, it boils down to like looking at what the team's brought weapon-wise, looking at how they kind of play in the past. What do you think might be first on the chopping block for Eternus, Zach?
Oh man, I mean, based on what we've seen, Makomark is definitely up there. Makobard has been a pretty common selection for, we know a lot of high level teams are very good at this stage and mode combination, and maybe we don't want to take them there. Elsewise, they could go the disaster route, I could call it, where it's stages that are very uncommon but are decidedly pretty terrible for splat zones in the minds of a lot of players. I'm thinking like a Flounder Heights or a Mincemeat Metalworks or something that is just not seen very often. It does look like they've split the middle, as Urchin Underpass, definitely one of the more popular and favorited stages for zones, and Flounder Heights kind of in that not seen in that great of a light, as that'll be the bands coming through from Eternus. And on the opposite side, Manta Maria out early, so not wanting to have to deal in either respect with Urchin or Manta with these longer spawns, and you could extend that even to Bluefin Depot.
And to kick things off with this set here, a map that I don't think I see too much at all, in all honesty here. Marlin Airport is how we're going to be starting things off here. A few things to know about this stage here is that there are the platforms that are controlled by the planes that can either rise or lower down depending on how you interact with them. But other than that, I really don't know what's a typical standout for this stage, I would be honest.
My opinion on this stage is that this would be so much more commonly played if the fans were not there. I think it adds a level of gimmick that a lot of comp players aren't really interested in, but the layout of the stage doesn't seem that bad. There's a lot of diagonal stages like this that are very common. There's lots of high ground options. There's grace. It's the same thing where there's something for everybody here. Protection, boxes, a somewhat open mid. It does in some respect feel like a bit of a ring around the rosy mid portion of the stage where the one zone is. I think the fans maybe hold this back from being more popular in competitive play. Now, that being said, certainly because they're there, you will want to make use of them. So we will see what ends up happening on this stage. Oftentimes players will try and set up all the way on the left or right and then enter almost like a 90-degree angle. So you go straight effectively from spawn, and then you take a hard left right when you get to where the zone is. We'll have to see how these teams operate and if there's going to be any element of spawn camping, because you do have to get on top of that high ground to get to where the spawn area is going to be.
Yeah, I don't recall how well this stage in particular does in terms of lockouts or in terms of, as you mentioned, Zach, spawn camping. But I guess we'll see here depending on how this match turns out. It could very well be a neck and neck, back and forth over time. Both teams at like 60 or 70 points plus scenario here. We really won't know until we get into the thick of it here. But at the very least, I think what I love about this series and what I love about this run here is the fact that we get to see a lot less popular maps come up in one way, shape, or form here. Marcus, I don't think anyone would ever willingly play Marlin Airport unless you just get pulled into it like this, like we did here. But to kick things off here, we're seeing exactly what's being brought to the stage here. Eternus putting nothing particularly new, a more standard try and true weapon call as well as Ascension.
Yeah, Jay will have the ZNF splatter scope, which is something that was on their player card, so not entirely out of the realm. And the first time today that we're seeing the Luna Blaster Neo come through from Kool-Ace. So nice pick there on to Jay as we see Kool-Ace trying to maneuver around and a super quick wipe out from the side of Ascension, doing so well to break into the composition of Eternus. And this is where you want your Luna Blaster to be. We had that conversation on Mahi about sitting under these drop downs. For Luna Blaster Neo, it is that much more important with your limited range.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this stage layout, it is very much, I see why the Luna Blaster was brought here. The short range, this big powerhouse AoE effect can just be utterly devastating to try and fight against here. But beautiful strikes from Eternus to really flip the script out of nowhere, and delayed wipeout in terms of Ascension, as now Eternus would be the ones to really be the ones to give Ascension a taste of their own medicine here, as they're doing a good job holding.
Yeah, that's the mark of a strong team, is if you get taken down early, how does your mental react to it? How does your team strategy react to it? And clearly, Eternus, no sleep or love lost in terms of getting wiped out at the very beginning as they claim the lead. Oh my gosh, having to use the Zipcaster to survive. I think they squid rolled into their possible demise. That's just another day in the life of a Splatana player.
Yeah, thankfully they did have the Zipcaster online there, but because of that, may have wasted a little bit of time. But I guess it doesn't really matter too much at the end of the day, because Eternus is just running away with these points. Ascension is trying to force these fights now, trying to force these flips to potentially break this line here. 2 down from Eternus give them an opportunity to potentially take the zone before the game slips away from them, and that they do in the nick of time before forcing the rest of Eternus to jump out.
Yeah, Cool Ace gets the pick there onto Kiki, who I believe was the one in the Flow Aura state, not able to use the Ultra Stamp. You can see why so many players opt to throw it immediately. Eternus almost with a knockout there. They get a massive penalty of over 70 to contend with, but they haven't really seemed to mind. In fact, they've been living on this fan and on the high ground. Look at Kiki's position as well. Doesn't get taken down, able to survive. Jay get a fall though. So that's the backline player coming away as Eternus setting back up. Does get the zone back. Kool Ace going to be the one to enter that Flow Aura state, and it seems like it's been about for Ascension putting Kool Ace in a position to succeed, which is not an easy task. They cannot do it by themselves in a lot of cases.
Yeah, no, putting a lot of, not necessarily pressure, but weight on Kool Ace to be able to hold this front line. Can have some own issues if they just get picked out or get zoned out pretty easily. But at least at the very least, we see right now Ascension is doing a well enough job to keep Eternus in check. But finally, Kool Ace does go down. The rest of the line does go down in return as the Ink Strikes are used to flip the zone. And now out of the gate, Eternus just moving to once again to meet the incoming players of Ascension here as they're getting ready to try and re-engage.
And Kool Ace going to be at the front of that. Kiki's going to go down. Will not get taken down by the triple splashdown as Sam using these tall grates to make use of the crab tank, which we haven't seen a ton of today. Now it's going to be Reiki going into that Zipcaster, is taken down immediately out of it. So just like with the Inkjet, you're able to be spotted upon jumping back in. And now Sam trying to take some of the weight off of Kool Ace's shoulders and advancing forward. Manzana, the same strategy, regardless of getting any picks. They've been able to take the zone back, which is important because they were struggling earlier to gain any space, and that was the biggest thing holding them back. I think team fight wise, decently holding their own, especially with Kool Ace coolly playing around these walls until they ultimately get taken down.
Yeah, and now we're in the final 30 ticks for Ascension. Final minute of this game. Eternus is forced to once again go for the triple Ink Strike to flip the zone in return, as well as use the splashdown to try and prevent Ascension from painting over it here. And now they're the ones in control once again, though Eternus is just applying this pressure, applying this overwhelmingly aggressiveness of their own pace against Ascension here. And now, once again, back in the driver's seat, keeping Ascension in check here.
Qualification spot on the line for these teams as we see Jay using this high ground, relying on somebody else so to make sure that the fan is painted. That's the only downside, is Sam not able to get back in, had the crab tank online a couple of seconds too late. And despite an early hot start from Ascension getting the wipeout in what felt like the first few seconds of the game, Eternus will live up to their #1 seed and they will get the knockout in game 1 here. Some poses as well, but a little bit more back and forth. I'm excited by this Ascension team to see if they can be the underdog story in this match.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Ascension has the makings to be able to fight back and punch back against a lot of the aggressiveness from Eternus, but the issue comes along with like Eternus, once they get set up, once they push Ascension back, it takes a lot more effort, not in a bad way, but a lot more effort, a lot more opportunity for Ascension to try and break through that line from Eternus that's just so solidly set up by them.
Yeah, they are a feast or famine team, Ascension is. I think when they are in the premier power position, players like Kool Ace can just absolutely pop off, and it's a joy to see. And they got very far in. They got to the very first drop down available to Eternus, and Kool Ace was there trying to get as many picks. But the flip side of that is it's more difficult for them to break out as a result, because a couple of their players, they just require more space. They require more groundwork to be laid before they can get into the best spots where their weapons can perform. So some moments of brilliance for Ascension, but Eternus, definitely holding strong in that one. They basically almost knocked out a minute or two before the match actually ended. And so now the onus will be on Ascension to try and pick somewhere good to go to even this matchup at 1 with a qualification spot on the line. Eternus before that going to ban a couple of stages. Humpback Pump Track going to be the first one on the chopping block here, and Undertow Spillway the second. So a couple of stages that are decently known for splat zones. It's not like we're getting the worst of the worst out of here by any stretch.
Yeah, I mean, Humpback Pump Track doesn't really surprise me too much because it is a bit of an awkward map, awkward stage no matter who you are. Undertow Spillway, a little bit disappointing, but that might also be my own dual zone bias speaking on that end. But we'll be seeing here shortly what Ascension wants to try and bring this next game to set wise here. But it looks like we are going to be going for the first time this tournament run here to Mako Mart here, the tried and true back in the good old days of Splatoon 2 that still carries on to this day because of its just very strong geometry, very strong map layout, and very strong just preferences to any weapon.
It seems like a stage where you either love it or you ban it, and up to this point it had been the ban it crowd winning out with nobody choosing to go to Mako Mart early enough on. But now we're finally here. That funky plus-shaped zone that is unique to this stage gives something for everybody. One of the more expansive anchor overlooks that you could possibly want on a stage. Of course, when you're pushed far enough up to where you have control of the zone, the two boxes, the ramps there, that's the space that you want to control on the high ground to advance forward. And the main return point from spawning players is going to be filtering to their right and using that jump down, that drop down, or just getting into mid through the right-hand side path. So we'll have to see if this pick will come through for Ascension or if Eternus will hold strong like in game one and go up 2-0. I see a custom GooTuber on my screen, and that, Dark, is not something I expected to come out.
No, I was looking at that. I was like, huh, that seems weird. And then it hit me as to what it actually was. I don't think we've seen GooTuber on any account in this echelon of play here. But you know what? Eternus is being like, hey, let's try this out, see how it works against Ascension. And we'll see exactly how it does work, though. Not that well, as they're at 2 down already out the gate.
Unbelievable. Jay will be one of the first to go down. Cool Ace helping their team Ascension here lock down the zone first, and this is right where you want them to be. Does not take them nearly as long of a distance to get to a part where they can be camping drop downs on Mako Mart as compared to Marlin Airport. Mirage helping to take down Jay there, so Jay having a bit of difficulty. A second pick there on to Kiki, and that will help Mirage and the rest of Ascension maintain momentum. And we were talking about this as Mirage enters that Float Aura state. When they're set up, they're looking like the best possible version of their team. I'm sure you could say that about lots of teams, but it really comes through for a team like Ascension.
Yeah, knowing exactly the strengths of their weapons to properly zone, properly engage, and properly disengage without losing too many resources here. They're trying to keep Eternus in check. We do see Raiki using the Zipcaster to pull attention away from the front line here. Almost gets called out by the Ultra Stamp, but they got their own jump covered by their own teammates. And they do take control of the zone, but 2 players down. It does not surprise me that Ascension is able to take control of the zone back once again immediately.
Now this is going to be the real story. We know the strength of Eternus. They do have to jump out and regroup here. So Ascension getting back quickly. And this was one of the big question marks that we have is, can they find some staying power? And in fact, they did. Mirage right back up on top of that box overlook. Cool Ace having 2 targets, maybe a little bit of target priority confusion as they look for one that scrambles into the alley and then gets taken down by Kiki, who will survive. Ascension now 2 down, still has the zone despite all of that, but with a 3rd pick there on to Manzana from Kiki, that will likely end the rain and give Eternus another crack at the zone.
Yeah, now finally being able to potentially take this fight in mid, take these victories here with these skirmishes. It's still a bit of a mess from either side. Raiki forced the Zipcast, looking to try and at least make sure that their jump is cleared here before recalling. Cool Ace, though, on the top rope here, does manage to force a jump out from Raiki as they use Ultra Stamp to try and clear some more area. But at least, very least, Ascension does seem to be one in control, at least of mid, not the zone just quite yet.
It also seems like people are ducking under the shots of Cool Ace. Like they know Ace is going to be jumping when they shoot, and so they enter that squid form and are getting under the shots somehow, especially when they're midair. Jay gonna throw out the Ultra Stamp, not find anybody. Cool Ace using that high ground discrepancy or disparity. They're going to find the pick as well. And Sam with a follow-up. So this is going to be 3 down. Eternus follows it up with a wipeout. It's Sam as the Team Ascension trading these float aura states back and forth, and you're putting your players in these premier positions. Monzana may be underrated in this effect because they have the splash wall, which is going to give them some more survivability and lockdown control over these areas that allows other players like their splash to build up the crab tank and give them an element of range too that they would not otherwise have, as their penalty points have now evaporated.
Yeah, a good breakthrough of the penalty points to apply some extra pressure against Eternus here. Raiki does jump in. That is the delayed wipeout for Ascension, though. A good setup could be made here for Eternus if he can play their cards right. We don't really have too many specials online for them just yet, but Kool-Ace comes in out of nowhere, forces Kiki to use the splashdown. No specials online now for Eternus means that Ascension might have the opportunity here to try and break through this line, especially with Tactical Lure online.
Sam trying to break through, does get the pick there, so that's going to be a trade, but it's going to be the Tactical user gone. Tactical is already out for Eternus, and they are living their best life here, having no penalty to get through. Kool-Ace not able to turn and have the range enough to find Kiki. Looking for one. Chivas going to take them down. A second one by Chivas onto Jay, and now basically a one-player army, as Eternus will have the lead up to 12. Ascension now the team with under a minute left to try and claw back. We've seen a better showing from them in terms of sticking around mid. Will that continue? They do find a couple of picks with Kool-Ace. That's going to be Chivas entering the floor state once again. And this 52 with 30 seconds to go and the lead taken from Ascension has really turned it on.
Yeah, I mean, Eternus does not have a lot of time to try and contest the zone here. Too much pressure, too much positioning from Ascension just kind of overwhelms and nullifies a potential just breakthrough for Eternus as Ascension takes this first game, bringing the set 1-1.
Yeah, that's how you make the best use of your counter pick. So Ascension doing a great job, and their players, I think,
see exactly what Eternus wants to bring as our game number 3-2 here, folks, as we come back to this lovely map overview. Just wait and see exactly what's going to be in store. We already know exactly what's taken off already. Ocean Underpass, Flounder Heights, Max Marina, Bluefin Depot, Humpback Ponycheck, and Undertale Spellway already out. But stack things on top of that, Sturgeon Shipyard and Scorch are Ascension's bans here as they strike those maps out. And now we wait to see exactly what Eternus wants to go to.
Yeah, Scorch Gorge, that and Museum just have these obstacles in the middle of a huge zone that players don't seem to want to deal with. Sturgeon, another one of those stages, was somewhat popular at the very beginning, but just has not had its day in the sun in any sense for a couple of years now, which feels weird to say that Splatoon 3 has even been out that long. But Sturgeon just has not been able to compete with the other fan favorites here. Still lots of that Final Destination-esque stage, something for everybody. You have that uninkable tent that anchor players like to stay on your flanks, and the rest of the players with that middling range, they sit right behind the zone and set up for whatever their team needs.
Yeah, and now as we get to see exactly what changes, if any, is going to be brought to the table here as we get the overview, I don't think there's anything in particular other than, of course, the YouTuber being swapped back out to the Charger, something more standardized over on the side of Eternus.
I think the writing was on the wall there for the YouTuber. It's a one-game wonder that we will not see the return of, as the Flash-O-Matic going to be one of the first to fall. Raiki advancing forward. Chivas not able to go on a reign of terror early in this game like they were in game 2. As it'll be Eternus locking down the zone first. That's going to be something that they haven't done very much. A nice falling shot there as well. We see Raiki coming out with the Zipcaster too, building up momentum. So you just hope that they don't overheat. They got 2 picks, but that is a pitfall teams fall into, is getting too far too early. So far, Eternus with a firm grip on the map control.
And Kiki now just sort of pushing this front line to the maximum of their own potential here. Eternus, the remainder of Eternus actually move up on top of this ramp, on top of this tent to just hold a very extraordinarily aggressive line here to prevent Ascension from any playing room, any breathing room whatsoever, as they're already down to 26 remaining on terms of points. Eternus looking to eventually just get a 100-0 knockout here.
Yeah, Eternus having to face the final onslaught from Ascension. Nice pick there onto Kiki. Cool. He's looking for a second one. That player going to be so low. And Antoine's going to get out and distract from the true objective here, which is going to be that zone. Easily the most dominant game of this matchup that we've seen so far, as Eternus, our #1 overall seed, comes one game away from being our first team to qualify for the Splat World Series 2026 finals.
Yeah, I mean, Eternus does not want to play around if it wasn't clear with that YouTuber pick a pivot after that second game here. They want that qualifying spot, and they're gonna take it here, especially with seeing that 100-0 on their side. But of course, to highlight as well as we are moving forward here, Ascension, if they lose here, they're not out of it just yet. Of course, we are in a double elimination bracket, so while they won't have their qualifying chance here, if they make it through who loses bracket, they have yet another chance to potentially qualify still through that end.
Certainly don't want to rely on that. The losers bracket run obviously going to be more difficult. Tons of teams to face that are hungry and know that they are just a match away from elimination. So now we come right back. Ascension going to be the one to choose the stage after a couple of strikes come through from Eternus. And have to look at what went well for them in game 2 on Mako Mart. You had the ability to lock down what, when you have the high ground, is a pretty open area. And so maybe you're looking for another one zone stage where you can find a pretty open middle ground territory and some ways to distract or to delay the enemy from coming back from spawn, so that a player like Cool Ace and protect them and watch those drop downs. We get into it now. Eel Tail Alley going to be gone. Definitely not another community favorite, I believe. One of, if not the largest zones available, and that's joined with Inkbot Art Academy. It's paired up with TC for a reason most of the time. Another one of those stages where you have to be careful about the art installment. So now we look for Ascension's pick. 15 maps on the board in total that have not been stricken, not including, of course, the stages that we have already been to. So more like 12 as we take a look at what's available. We've seen Bryanwater Springs earlier today. We've seen Shipshape Cargo Co. earlier today. Crableg Capital has been one of the first bans or strikes in a lot of instances and still remains here. And then, of course, Barnacle and Dime, where we saw that Game 5 spectacle still available.
I'm still at awe at how that last set turned out from what we saw on that game 5 here. But no, it is Ascension's ball on the court here to see exactly where we want to go, where we want to potentially maybe see the last game here, potentially see the extension of the game, of the set here. But we go to Bryanwater Springs here, a stage we've seen already in the previous set here, to quickly go over points again. The smallest stage compared with, or compacted with, the smallest zone in this game, and Backlines is just sitting at a wonderland here on this stage.
Yeah, this one, the last time we saw it, more than any other stage, broke down into 3v3, and then the flankers chasing each other around like cats and dogs, I suppose. They were just wandering, trying to find each other, playing hide and seek. And we'll have to see if that holds true, because there are, again, 52 Gal players in this lobby. But outside of that, looking at the team play portion, you know, it does end up going past the zone and into the first part of the real estate of that ramp through point for teams. If they can pass that, it usually will allow them to get into mid. But players that have the zone, they will be bump on that sort of square area, defending and having a great view of the entire ramp on its way down. So Eternus, with one game separating them from a qualifying spot in the Splat World Series finals, the E-Leader comes back. We haven't seen that in a while, and the Custom Blaster will be the pick to maybe combat Cool Ace's Luna Neo.
Yeah, I mean, the E-Litter, as we saw in previous games, if set up properly, can absolutely devastate this entire game here. And out the gate, did get the one pick, 2 players now down for an Ascension here, provides a good setup for Eternus to get themselves set up here, and may potentially get a Ascension pushed back a bit here, as Kiki, as well as a second player, looking to try to hide under these legends.
Jay having to dance around the Killer Whale 5.1. Antoine Ant not able to survive the onslaught of sub weapons that are there. So look at the split. We had 3v3 and 1v1. Now we're having 2v2 and 2v2. The teams were almost perfectly split between the ramps. The zone is almost an afterthought as you're trying to lock down the picks more so than just the zone in the moment, as Chivas is going to get that pick onto Raiki, advance forward, look for another one there, and maybe get a little big for their britches. So that was a pitfall that I mentioned earlier. Eternus didn't fall for it, and Kool Ace, if they had one, was bailing out Ascension with that double, and that will delay Eternus even further.
Yeah, I mean, Eternus does have the better cards in hand with that Elir specifically, but as mentioned beforehand, not being able to get properly set up, Ascension is using that to the best of their capabilities here to keep Eternus in check, to keep them, or prevent them from being able to actually move up any bit forward here. And Weapon here looking to try and get another pick over around this corner here, but it's not like trying to find anything, as there's only 15 ticks remaining. Gets one here, but will that one pick be enough to flip the zone? Yes, it will.
It's a situation where on a shot like that, you don't even see the laser. It moves so fast and the pick comes through so quickly that it is the literal blink of an eye. And Eternus needed it because Ascension was one tick away from being into the single digits here. And Raiki now with the chance to move forward. Haven't gotten to see them be as aggressive as you'd like. They're more so in that skirmisher role where they're poking out and getting some light damage so that a player like Kiki can finish the job, or even Che from that long range. Not that they necessarily need the help. Killer Whale 5.1 is going to come out. That's an interesting special to use as an opener, but it does work as Kool Ace tracks down their enemy. They're going to briefly lose the zone as the Wavebreaker is going to come out, but Kool Ace doing the cleanup job. That's going to be one pick and the assist on the next one as Ascension holds strong.
Yeah, good swing back to Ascension here as they're looking, trying to get themselves set up. A pushback against Eternus yet again here. The splashdown creates a lot of space, prevents Ascension from being able to play up as forward as they normally would be able to. Two players make that, three players down for Ascension here, but Eternus is not able to put any push going as Kool Ace makes the last stand there, only finally being able to go down.
Antoine locking down the zone. Somebody's got to do it. You can't live on the ramps the entire time with some of the weapons not having as good enough range to do that with, and Eternus not with a big penalty at all. So they are right back into it with 2 minutes left to go. Kool Ace going to win that battle here in that Flow Aura state. They have been the flashy MVP for this Ascension team, but you also have these back line plays like Sam on the crab tank as they now move forward with that Splash-O-Matic, looking to find a pick, and if nothing else, it is delaying the members of Eternus for as long as they can, and it is working. However, the counter specials come through, and importantly, the Ultra Stamp is going to miss, so that is going to delay things even further.
A good pick on Kool Ace though breaks the crucial part of Ascension's front line here, potentially allowing Eternus to be able to play up a bit more forward here without the threat of that blaster hanging under those corners here, those ledges here, as the zone is getting constantly flipped back and forth between the two teams here, looking to see if Ascension can hold on to it as best as they can. That they do here. Penalty points are almost as good as gone here. Eternus needs to be able to flip it back in their favor to stay alive for a bit longer. That they do, applying those penalty points here, and now setting up for a proper hold here once again.
Less than a minute left to go, and the Zipcaster, the only special currently online among either team. And as I mentioned, this little square right below the ramp is going to be where the defense happens from, in this case, Eternus. The penalty is gone. Sam has gotten into the crab tank, and another special comes out in the form of the Ultra Stamp. Kool Ace riding it through and even gets to use it to try and paint the zone, but it is not going to be enough yet. Now Chivas there to help, and that will give them the zone with 30 seconds left to play. So the shoe comes back over to Eternus as they will have a heck of a time trying to get back in with multiple specials already committed.
Yeah, tactical or online for Eternus though means that they have the aggressiveness in their favor with that quick and respawn, with that quick and super jumps, you know. And so now 10 seconds remaining. They are in the driver's seats right now. There's only 20 penalty points on their side, plus the additional 10 ticks on the actual points here. It's going to be a close call for Eternus to be able to close this game out here. One mistake will really just completely absolve this potential take here as the penalty points are gone. Ascension just comes in, takes the zone with just how small it is. It's so easy that a blaster could flip it.
Collapsed on top of the zone at the right moment and had everybody in place to give Ascension a victory in game 4. And for the second time in a row, we are going to a game 5 situation with this time a qualification spot on the line. It's anybody's guess as to who it will be. A Turnus who has had lots of strong moments, but has had some difficulty with staying power, and Ascension, who's been very flashy, but a little bit more inconsistent overall than Eternus has been.
Yeah, I mean, with how these sets have been going so far, Eternus, it makes sense why they're the #1 seed, but Ascension is finding those crucial moments of weakness, crucial just chinks in the armor to be able to abuse them, to push Eternus to the limit, to push them back to properly take control of the zone here. Especially with that last game, you know, we saw Ascension really leverage Kool-Aid as a proper tool against a lot of the front line from Eternus, especially against the sheer range oppressiveness of that E-leader to deny them from that just constant range accessibility from them.
And so if you're Eternus, with you having the rights to pick the stage for game 5, barring a couple of strikes from Ascension, you have a difficult job to mitigate both extremes, because you're going to have a Snipe Rider and a Crab Tank in theory to worry about, as well as Kool-Ace on that lower ranged Luna Neo. And then rounding that all out, we haven't even mentioned Chivas on that 52, kind of the ghost in the night is the phrase I like to use a lot with 52 players, that they just pop out of nowhere, get an easy 2-shot splat, and then they are right back out. So you have to maybe go somewhere that is almost entirely mid-oriented, that doesn't have super long sight lines, but also doesn't put you into a corner or have too many necessary small drop downs that you would need to make in order to come out from spawn. So we see here 15 total stages left, including the ones that have already been played. So out of those, 11, I would think, available to be stricken by Ascension. Which one will they strike? Tons of interesting ones left. Mahi again, that player favorite, gone from the board, and Crab Like Capital, we wondered if we might finally see it, but It Dark is our last possible ban of this match.
Yeah, so now it is, the ball is in Eternus' court here to see exactly where we want to take this game 5. Once again, it's just the repeat from last time. Particle and die for 5th game here. But the crucial thing to point out here is that Eternus and both Ascension are at that match point to potentially be your first qualifying team for this second qualifier.
Maybe they got inspired by the game 5 that we just witnessed between Poltergeist and Non-Existence, but who wouldn't be after the absolute show that was put on in that series? And this series has been no slouch by any stretch of the imagination. We saw in our previous Barnacle and Dime game a push all the way to 3 that was not enough to take the game, and also not enough for a reverse sweep to happen. By the way, Non-Existence is still alive. They win their losers round 2 matchup against Vamos a la Playa, and they will move on to actually play the loser of this game here. So this should be very interesting to see, as Non-Existence and the loser of this game will both have come off of game 5 losses on this exact stage, and only one of them and move on. We'll also get to Content Cat versus Poltergeist next, but it is Eternus versus Ascension in a game 5 bout. Will it be that overwhelming speed and power that Eternus is able to bring? Will they live up to the first overall seed hype, or will Ascension pull off a second upset in a row and be the first team to secure a spot as our qualifier?
Yeah, the pressure is really building from either side at this point. I mean, Eternus definitely wants to vie for that qualifier spot, especially as the first seed for this tournament series. But Ascension, you know, showing that they have what it takes to fight back against Eternus, against the remainders of these teams, are making a statement here and be like, hey, we can swing 2. We will fight for this as best we can here. So we're eagerly waiting, eagerly trying to see exactly how these teams want to play out this 5th in this final game of this set. But I'm do you think, Zach, we'll see any, I don't think so, but do you think we'll see any weapon changes here for this 5th game?
You'd have to have a very good reason, I would think, to change it up. I think it's not as though it is so one other than the custom GooTuber, which decidedly did not work and is not commonly seen in competitive play, because powers required to make that weapon work at the high level. But we'll have to see as we load into a deciding Game 5 winner qualifies for the Splat World Series 2026 finals. And Jay will end this match how they started it on the ZNF Splatter Scope. We'll see the return of that custom blaster. And for the members of Ascension, it feels like they're just running it back with what they believe is strongest.
Yeah, nothing new here from either side, going with their true and tried weapon lineups from the first game here. As out the gate, Eternus finds Cool Ace, catches Cool Ace out, and now are just immediately pushing back against Ascension here. But they do meet with their own player being lost here, but I think at the end of the day, Eternus does win this first engagement here and looking to try to keep control over Ascension.
Yeah, notice how even with a player or two down, Ascension does not fall all the way back to their spawn. They stay well ahead of where Mirage just jumped out of outside of their anchor player so that they can stay alive. Now the takeover of the zone going to be counteracted by the triple ink strike from Eternus. Raiki going to be getting in there with the Zipcaster, gets active and takes down Sam, does not have enough room to take down Chivas, who is going to fall. They have that 52 online, and a nice pick onto Cool Ace. That was one of the questions marks against Ascension, is how will Eternus handle them? Seems like Kiki ranging them out, and look at how far ahead they've been able to advance as a result.
Yeah, a good hold here from Eternus to keep Ascension in check. And I think at this point they do recognize that Cool Ace is the player to really look out for and keep in check here, as they're able to get two, finally get shut down here, but points are still running away from Eternus here. Ascension finally looking to try and contest the zone here, but the Tri-Strike comes in to take it in control back again for Eternus.
Okay, trying to back things up here with that ZNF Splatter Scope. Cool Ace gets to the side of Raiki and does not even pay them any mind. And Eternus, second most emphatic looking game, I think, for them so far, outside of that very decisive Game 3. And this is going to be what Ascension has to conquer. If they can get the zone, they, of course, don't have a huge penalty to chew through. But Cool Ace, even with not as much room to work with, gets a pick, trades out with Raiki. So that's two. Will that be enough? Two of the more paint-conscious weapons still alive for Eternus, and it's deja vu once again, where it's the triple ink strike keeping Eternus in it for now, but Ascension finally able to take it over.
Yeah, a good flip for Ascension to finally push Eternus back here to get them in check, put them into this chokehold here. This provides a big, ample opportunity to try and run away with a lot of points, but a 2-for-1 from Weapon completely nullifies this hold here, as now Eternus is able to run over Ascension and get them in check, but Shiva here is able to return the call with the two potential picks on their own before finally getting shut down.
And this looks like it will be a zone flip for Eternus. They do need to invest the triple splashdown, but it will be enough, as Kiki not able to get the final splat. The jump out right next to spawn comes through to hang on to that remaining part of their special. But this is the area that you don't want to be locked down in. Eternus not taking advantage of the space outside of Raiki, who has that Zipcaster online and is able to fish out without the use of it. Cool Ace. And now look at how far back Ascension is. 20 points remaining for Eternus. Sam gonna go down. Raiki not showing any real desire to leave that area. Yeah. Triple ink strike not even needing to be used on the zone at all. And that spells disaster for an Ascension team that cannot complete the spoiler victory over Eternus. And Eternus, therefore, is your first qualified team from our second qualifier to make the Splat World Series 26 finals.
Yeah, I mean, a good showing for Eternus here, as they were a little bit shaky throughout the majority of that set, but at the end there, when they got into position, when they got the players in position, they got that checkmate set up and was able to really lock it in and cruise their way to victory there.
So the bracket is updated. We have our first team qualified. Shortly, of course, we'll see our second team qualified. And here, once again, is the finalized and updated bracket. Some updates, too, on the bottom end, is it will be Ascension taking on Non-Existence. And that should be an absolute banger of a match. And Takedown awaiting the loser of our other qualifying match from the winner's side of the bracket that we'll have coming up soon. Content Cat versus Poltergeist Dark, our 2v3 matchup.
Yeah, I'm very much eager to see exactly how that set will play out. But we will be going to a very quick break here, folks. So don't go anywhere just yet. Take your food, snacks, or water, or use the restroom if you need to. We'll be right back here in just a moment. And we're back, folks, with our next set here. My name's Dark. I'm here with Shiny Hunter Zach, and we're going to be seeing the next set. Will be coming in hot, by the way. It's Contra Cat versus Poltergeist. We've already seen Poltergeist, so nothing to go over on that end. But the crew here we're seeing the first time on this set is going to be Contra Cat, consisting of Atlas, Hawaiian, Kronos, and Gimme, as you see on your screen. Atlas playing potentially this Katana Wiper, Hawaiian being that bow extraordinaire, maybe playing the Rapid Blaster in return, and Kronos being the support of choice with either the Tent or the Splash, or maybe even the Pencil for Feeling Spicy.
Yeah, so sadly, no Basil. That would have been so funny to see. It looks like Basil subbed out for this one, but this is an absolute banger of a roster of a team that we saw have some fantastic runs in the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026. Had 2 different out of 8 weeks losers bracket runs all the way through to grand finals, where they lost both times to Milky Way. Hawaiian, one of the best tri-stringer players I've ever seen, and they play this kind of 2-up, 2-back style where it was Pika with Gimme playing very far ahead. Gimme, by the way, a Dapple Doolies 2-trick. They play both variants pretty much equally in terms of the Dapple Doolies and the Nouveau. And then Kronos almost babysits Hawaiian, make sure that nobody gets close enough to Hawaiian to some of the crazy stuff they can pull off, especially with the Inkling.
This is very much a team that I love seeing during the NA League, and I'm very much eager to see exactly how it plays out here with the Splatoon World Series, folks. We're seeing just exactly where we're going to be going first here on this set, which we will be seeing for the first time, Urchin Underpass.
Another one of those stages that just hasn't quite made it through the ban or striking phase, and now we finally get to see it. In terms of the players themselves, the only possible surprise I really have is Zekrom on the Dynamo Roller. So this zone is not too huge. It is a major map with a not very big singular zone, and so already one member of Content Cat backed up into a corner, but it gives you a strong backline, because one of the most important things on this stage is not staying necessarily in the zone, but controlling the hill and the area directly behind the zone.
Yeah, I mean, those areas are crucial for a lot of the fighting here in this stage. Not even just for the zone, but as well as like when you're trying to hold in the incomings as well. But out the gate, Content can set themselves up pretty well here as they get Kronos gets a pick on the incoming as well, as they're just pushing Poltergeist back bit by bit. The Ultra Stamp as well, the Inkzuka comes out, does not find much of anything, but 2 players still down from Poltergeist means that Content has a lot of free ground here.
Well, and I feel bad for Miner because very clearly they have to play their life in as many situations as they can. That's why they're trying to use as much of that range extreme as they possibly can. Zekrom, like many supporter anchor players, sort of backed up into this alley. They're sort of locked down to it, but they haven't been able to get out. And so far, Content Cat really holding things down. There's a Caparoni that stuck and somehow didn't get taken out or caught. They're now not even paying attention to the zone, leaving that to Spec, who comes in, but maybe too little too late. A last-second Booyah Bomb will not do enough. And it is a 100-0, despite some hitches, knockout for Content Cat to start this match.
Yeah, it's very much. I saw the idea with that final play there, with the Gao, trying to be like, okay, I have the remainder of my team to paint the zone. Let me just make sure I push up the front line to allow the rest of my team to safely play. But unfortunately, I think there was just not enough time for that play to specifically pan out on that end. So it just kind of ended up with Content Cat getting some free points to close out the game there.
One of the points that I consistently came back to for Content Cat in the Splatoon 3 North American League was just how volatile of a team they are. You don't know which version of them you're going to get on any given day, and it's a very oddball composition. You know, Hawaiian was one of the players that I think of as pioneering the tri-stringer in a high-level competitive play. So that's great in some sense that a lot of players haven't played around it a lot. It's a very tricky weapon that players, use when they have a high skill ceiling on it. But it also, you don't know if the Content Cat you're going to see is struggling. This one looks like they've gotten out to a super strong start against a Poltergeist team that has been, for the most part, in the Splatoon community, the high-level community, for quite some time. As the bans come through, Eeltail gone, and Museum d'Alfonsino also gone.
As we're waiting to see what Poltergeist wants to pick here, we can actually rewind a little bit to see exactly what was banned out the gate before we got to Urchin Underpass, which seems that Content Cat banned struck out Flounder Heights and Crablet Capital, while Poltergeist struck out Waffle World and Manta Maria. Not stages that I do think is too surprising to see struck out this early.
Yeah, Flounder, Crableg, those have been very common for different reasons to strike, and Umami. This is likely going to be it for Splat Zones. Of course, we did see Undertow Spillway earlier in the day, but Umami just has it all. That square area by the ink rail and try and lock the opposing anchor player out from using that cylinder with its advantageous height and positioning. So there's Gimme on the Dapple Toolies. No surprise there. Zekrom going to be going from the Dynamo Roller over to the Snipe Rider 5H. And we again see this Camobrella coming out, this Sorella Umbrella coming out from Kronos, which is sort of babysitting again their players. And for these zones, it's almost perfectly shaped to advance forward.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I love about Tent on this map specifically is because of just the constant moving pressure you can apply on the zone, specifically on this stage here. It is the perfect size to threaten a lot of different angles, a lot of different ways, a lot of different avenues here. But Content Cat here is doing a extraordinary job keeping Poltergeist in check here as Hawaiian set up here in mid here, trying to find the perfect angle to keep Poltergeist in check.
Yeah, Caproni, no person to play tag with on the 52 is that's not something Content Cat brings to the table. That's something we saw in their last set quite a bit. Content Cat holding it down as I think that was Booyah Bomb not being thrown on the zone once again, trying to catch somebody out. Kronos with that superior survivability, and it's in large part due to positioning. Caproni not able to take advantage of Content Cat due to the way that they're positioning themselves. Finally, they're able to get Atlas due to the odd man advantage, and it'll be Poltergeist taking it back just after the halfway mark.
Yeah, a good flip from Poltergeist to get themselves on the field here, on the map right now, as Content Cat playing it slow, playing it steady, trying to see exactly how they want to poke out the Mater Poltergeist, how they want to get these picks they need. Booyah Bomb does come out and gets that pick on Caparoni here. A good throw from Specs out here as they're trying to just hold this front line as best they can. Super Chumps does create some chaos in mid, but doesn't seem to impact much of anything else.
Yeah, tie there. Tie goes to the team, of course, that first have reached that number, so it will not be the lead until now for Poltergeist, as Hawaiian backed up all the way. Going to be on this Super Chump variant, so no Inkjet specialties today, but also Poltergeist hasn't really been able to or maybe needed to displace them. Now we see the Super Chump coming out, so we'll probably see some heavy investment here in tandem with the Tactical, or they're going to take control away briefly from Poltergeist, but still not enough. Caparoni being evasive enough to find one pick before going down, and Miner similarly prioritizing their life but still having an impact on the zone. So with these plays, it buys Poltergeist basically an extension of this team fight, despite that Content Cat back on the board and chipping away at their penalty.
Yeah, now in control from Content Cat. They're looking to try to leverage Gimme to hold the front line as best they can. Caparoni called out on the back line, gives them a lot of free space here to be able to push up, hold forward as best they can. But 2 players down on the side of Content Cat may make it a little bit difficult here. Not unless you're Chronos holding the front line with this bastion of a weapon. That is the 10 Umbrella here. Finds one, is in Aura state before finally getting taken down here as Tri-Strikes is online. We do see the Booyah Bomb is online here from Poltergeist here as they're trying to leverage this next incoming push here.
Yeah, Spec and Cap are looking like the wave that Poltergeist needs of offense, because Content Cat, they like to take your gaze and aggression away from the main priority areas. They like to be that sort of distracting fly in your ear that pulls you away. Poltergeist, they have no qualms about their playstyle. They're like, get me in there and get me to be as aggressive and hyper offensive as I can in a successful way. Despite that, Content Cat has the zone. Atlas desperately trying to paint, loses the zone. They're going to have the Super Chumps backing them up. They're just a point away from the tie and the 2 points from the lead, and they will steal it away as Gimme with a parting pick onto Spec. And I'm not sure Poltergeist can regroup fast enough to contest.
Yeah, and with the specials committed, with this positioning that Poltergeist was in, it may be a bit difficult here, but Miner holds it strong here as they take out Content Cat one by one and allows the remainder of the team to return here and mid to get ready for this incoming push here from Content Cat here. Well, what it was a devastating blow to them turns into a last stand that they're now still trying to continue on with this momentum here.
That's what makes Miner such a good player. Perennial is the word that I would use to describe them, because they are constantly prioritizing their life and using the Slosher less like an aggressive weapon a la Brand from Milky Way. It is more so the ability to have those triple ink strikes at the exact right moment and pop out to clean up any splats that you need. Now Spec gonna be on the Booyah Bomb trying to find Chronos. A couple members have gotten past him though. One of them is Gimme, who will fall, but they have a lot to contend with. They have the canopy of Chronos as well as those Super Chumps. The wipeout comes through and Content Cat holds on to the lead with 15 seconds to go.
Yeah, this is looking devastating for Poltergeist. They need to move in fast and now to contest, at least not even contest the zones. They need to take either both the zones here. But with the wall that Content Cat set up, so much space, so much area to try and swim through here, it just was a kind of a checkmate scenario at the end there. You got the wipe.
You know, very heartwarming though that at the very end of that game, Cap finally found their playmate in Chronos that they had lost. Like they were just kind of dancing on the ink rail, waiting for the pick. Props to Cap, got the pick there onto Chronos, but not enough time to steal the zone back, both zones, I should say, because they did, I believe, get one at the very end, but force the overtime that never came. So Content Cat with a great job there. They will go up as a result even further and cement themselves as that much closer to getting into a qualification spot. And this has been a super strong roster. Was interested to see how they might play with Atlas instead of Tika. But Atlas appears to have filled that spot well. You get that same kind of mid-range element that your team needs. It feels like every team has wanted a Splatana Stamper or somebody in that realm to poke out your enemies, be that strong skirmisher. And so far, they've done a great job of it, and to the great credit of Content Cat as they come one game away from success.
Yeah, now the pressure is really stacked high for Poltergeist here as we see the next strike phase in this set here. Inkbot Art Academy and Marlin Airport is taken out by Content Cat here as we look over to Poltergeist, seeing what's left on the table, seeing where exactly they want to take this potential game 3 for Content Cat or potential first victory for Poltergeist.
some interesting stages left over. I don't know that anyone would deign to go to the Mincemeat Metalworks or the Hammerhead Bridges of the world. You know, Humpback, we have Barnacle and Dime for a potential game 5 if there is one, although certainly Content Cat looking to close things out in 3 if at all possible. Robo Ramen too, something that does come up quite frequently. We've seen earlier today, and I think plays decently well to the playstyles of both teams. Of course, you're gonna have to watch out for a player like Hawaiian on those low walls. That's basically the perfect range to stay far enough back on the low wall, but still have an impact on the zone itself. We've even seen Marlin Airport come through, which is something that surprised me as something that they would favor. So we'll have to take a look at what Poltergeist is looking to bring in terms of, you know, what fits to their composition. Brine Water, which is the selection, makes a bit of sense. You're going to try and force, you know, Hawaiian and everybody else back from Content Cat and make that your optimal range, but lots of work to do on the side of Poltergeist.
Yeah, I mean, for the 3rd time on this series so far, we're back to Brine Water Springs, and I see why we got brought here. You know, it is small and compact. It allows a lot of the skirmishers from Poltergeist to maybe shine through here, especially if you know that Content Cat doesn't typically a snipe rider or an e-leader. You know, you can leverage that to know that, okay, we won't be dealing with an oppressive backline so far, so there's a lot more and potentially win a lot of more fights.
So we get into it now. Content Cat looking to emphatically, with a sweep, in fact, cement their 2nd spot out of 3 today for qualifying for the Splat World Series 26 finals. Poltergeist hoping to pull off that reverse sweep magic that we almost saw earlier today. And as far as compositions go, not much to speak of. Atlas will be on the Splatana Wiper as opposed to a Stamper. Caparoni immediately targeting them, and Atlas will get out of dodge. It will be Content Cat taking the zone first, but as Poltergeist is right next to it, and in these premier positions, they continue to jockey for that position.
Yeah, a bit of mayhem being spread throughout the entirety of mid here. Content Cat down 2 players, but Poltergeist is still down a few players as well. It's not a clean fight right now. It's still anyone's game here, anyone's mid here, as both teams are still just trying playing this consistent, prolonged game of neutral here. Specials being thrown out here. Finally, Spec Shout does go out. The Booyah Bomb does come out from Poltergeist. Strikes coming in from Poltergeist as well. It's just chaos here.
Feels like we've barely talked about Gimme as well, and the novelty of them playing the Dapple Toolies at such a high level, and they have not favored the Nouveau really this game. It feels like they've seen the Beacons as the premier way to play, and it makes sense getting a team back into the action that likes to be playing together. You need somebody to sit behind the canopy like Kronos in order to protect it, as we see Poltergeist taking the lead. And now Content Cat's done a good job of not backing themselves up too far. A pick on the Spec and a follow-up one onto Cap will certainly help. The Ultra Stamp will finally go down, but Gimme will clean that up. And that shows with that delayed wipe just some of the prowess that Content Cat has to offer.
Yeah, a good swing with that Ultra Stamp really took that hold and flipped the script here against Poltergeist. But even though the Content Cat was looking pretty good here, they weren't able to actually properly maximize their potential here, as they did go down a few players. They did allow Poltergeist to come in and recontest the zone at least a little bit before. Now finally Content Cat's holding onto this zone proper and true here. Kronos looking to try and defend the incoming players here, as Poltergeist looking to try to find their next angle of approach.
Yeah, not much to contend with. Didn't have a huge penalty, as Kronos trying to give that protection really for themselves more than anybody. Just gives them a way to advance and use that shotgun style of play. Content Cat will take the lead here as they force Poltergeist to lose their 52 and their sticker Splatana, who was buffed up and will have their special online. So the Booyah Bomb coming in just ahead of the zone. Hawaiian forced to back off, so more about displacement of person rather than progress on the objective. But if they can get a player like Atlas down, that will be some progress. Spec goes down instead. And this is the other ability of Content Cat, is they find another player to group up with so that these 1v1s are never truly 1v1s.
Yeah, these small skirmishes here is kind of going in the favor of Poltergeist with how they've been fighting. You know, 1v1s that are never really 1v1s, as you mentioned, Zach, allows Poltergeist to be able to just keep moving, keep migrating, keep pivoting from one area to another, and just keeping Content Cat in check, not giving them much breathing room here. And yeah, they break through the defenses sometimes. Sometimes they break through the lines even, but it's still just Poltergeist being able to take these uneven fights and just keep constantly leveraging them into their power. But Content Cat seems to start taking that to their own abilities here as they're trying to break through Poltergeist, but still not enough.
Yeah, relying heavily there on Spec, who enters the flow aura state. And I agree, their pushes and their fights were so strong, they just get caught in a loop where an unfortunately timed jump is going to prevent and make them lose 2 players. And so Content Cat, despite the strong start there from Spec to keep that push alive, will claim the zone back, and they just have 10 penalty points to chew through. Hawaiian with great visibility on that platform as Spec leading the charge, takes care of Gimme, and that's going to be Kronos going down as well as Cap forces them too. So they are almost luring Content Cat further and further in to that ramp area and then collapsing as if making a call to collapse at the same time. And that's consistently gotten Poltergeist back into the zone area.
Yeah, good call out there from Poltergeist to just completely flip the script yet again here for Content Cat. But now the question is, can Poltergeist keep this up here? You don't have a lot of penalty points to chew through here, and there's only a 9-point differential between your actual points to potentially take the lead here. If you can hold on to just long enough, you can apply that pressure to Content Cat and force him to take these fights. The lead has been swapped here as 2 players do go down for Poltergeist. Content Cat has to move in now if they want to close out the set here and now, folks. As we enter the final 15 seconds of this game, we might potentially see an overtime victory here if Content Cat plays their cards right.
That's your anchor player gone, though. It looks like Poltergeist resetting, so that could allow Content Cat to bring this one to overtime. They will take over control, and Kronos, buffed up by that Tacticaler, will advance forward. Gets the pick there onto Spec and has the try Azuka online. Doesn't find anybody, but is creating space. Misses the Ultra Sword. Gimme will fall, and it just was not going well enough on the objective itself. Ryan Water Springs here, and they will stay alive to force a game 4.
I gotta give it Flake against Content Cat. It really won them that game there to disrupt that backline, to disrupt that hold that Content Cat was holding so much. Even it was such a crucial moment there at the end, because I believe it was Zekram who was just not down to probably less than 10 HP on this top ramp here. They couldn't contribute much of anything here, so it was up to just the remainder of the team, 2 players, to try and disrupt this whole try and disrupt this line, and Cap was able to just get it done here.
And it's the pincer maneuver that they employ, right? Miner takes the more logical path that you would think. They drop down from the left-hand side with that slosher, and they're taking some of the aggression away, but most of them went through the ramp all the way to that lower court area and then popped back up. So you have 2 over here, 1 over here. Don't know which way to focus. The 3 members of Content Cat, they're stuck in the middle. Kronos is stuck on the ramp, so they can't come back and help. A jump in would just make them a sitting duck. And so a great job of luring in, as I mentioned before, Content Cat into an inopportune piece of land. And now Poltergeist with an opportunity to ban some stages. Mako Mart, the first in this wave to fall. So we will not see the return of a favorite for a lot of people. And Hammerhead Bridge, the second to go. So Hammerhead, not something we've seen today. I don't think something we've very much expected to see today, but that start gives Content Cat the honor of picking for game 4.
Yeah, and here it's once again the interesting part for sets like these, where you do win your first game against the enemy team who's up 2 against you, but now to try and climb back out of this hole, you have to fight against a counter pick or 2 against the enemy team. Content Cat knows what they're good at, knows what they want to see here. They know the kind of tools they need to close out this set. So we're seeing exactly how does Content Cat want to close things out here, and we will be going to Hagglefish Market for the second time today.
All right, so Hagglefish Market makes a return. Pretty sensible choice, I would think, for Content Cat. You enable Hawaiian so much, and I would not be surprised to see the bulbs tri-stringer come out from Hawaiian, where before we had not seen it come through. It is great at giving them high ground. There are lower boxes that they can use for the exhaust to get a higher elevation when they're in the inkjet. But regardless of which variant of the tri-stringer they pick, I think they're going to have lots of options here. Gimme, if they want to stay on the vanilla dapple dualies, it's going to give them a perfect area, lots of places for them to put beacons down, and mostly with tower control. But I see Gimme and previously Pika, of course, for this tournament will be Atlas, advancing very far forward. And hopefully this would give them as a pick for their counter pick, the ability to be a bit more aggressive and successful with their pushes. On the opposite side of things, pardon me, the opposite will be, how is the defense going to come through from Poltergeist? Are they going to be able to lock down this 2-and-2 style of combination that Content Cat likes to play? And it seems like they've been able to do that with these pincer maneuvers. We'll have to see if that stays true on Hagglefish Market.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really gonna be a true test for Poltergeist here to try and see and challenge like what here in this second game for your quote-unquote upcoming to potentially win this set here. And it's the question of, can actually make the adjustments they need to keep Poltergeist in check to prevent them from being able to abuse some of the things that they managed to call out so far from what they've learned here. But as we head into this game number 4 here, we will be seeing exactly how this lineup is going to change, if any. I don't think it will be, and it won't be any changing at all. Both teams confident what they brought, both teams confident with how they played. They're looking to go back with this with the same consistency they've had so far.
Yeah, Inkling tri-stringer returns, so the super chump going to be favored. Place it right on top of the zone and a little bit further. 52 going to stay online for Poltergeist here, and it looks like we're still trying to argue for position here. Caparoni wasting no time in getting into this alleyway. Finds the pick onto Kronos, baiting Kronos to look over the ledge and trying to have those shots pre-placed to take them down. But Kronos, that's the beauty of having Gimme on your team, right back into the action. It's wall versus wall effectively, as they're going to use that canopy to take down the splash wall. And an advantageous start here for Content Cat, as they're already in the low 60s.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that out the gate, Content Cat has a very good opening here against Poltergeist. This is their pick. It's a pick for them for a reason. It's just something they're most comfortable with right now. And yeah, even though Poltergeist is able to get 1 or 2 picks here to disrupt the line, just the remainder of Content Cat is able to hold it down so well to prevent them from running away so much. Like Gimme right there, taking 2 before falling back there, crucially disrupting this incoming line from Poltergeist.
And pretty optimistic, aggressive placement of the tactical, but they had another player there to take advantage of it. Kronos not able to get out due to an unfortunately placed splat bomb for them. Gimme stuck in a corner here at literally 1 HP. And for a player like Caparoni for Poltergeist, that's kind of how you have to approach them. You have to give them no other option to escape. But Atlas going to be there for Content Cat. A very small penalty to chew through here, as the 2 Sultana players will counteract each other, and it will be Stamp v Booyah Bomb. Ultra Stamp looking to win the day there, but Spec surviving, and that allows Poltergeist to pull through for the zone again.
Yeah, and now Poltergeist in control. We'll be seeing exactly how they choose to defend against Content Cat here. The Super Chumps do come out to try and disrupt this front line here, but the Inkstrikes come out in return to keep Content Cat in check here, but it does not matter, as they're still able to run through them and can't control the zone once again here. But we do have Cap on the back line once again, doing what that 52 loves to do, and just disrupting the back line, disrupting the flanking routes here against Content Cat, just disrupting that push, that just completely shutting it down at this point.
Yeah, Caparoni versus Gimme was kind of like high cortisol energy versus low cortisol energy. Gimme was just doing the most, like dodging around as much as they could, and Cap was just sat behind a splash wall like, okay, any day now, I'm just going to shoot in the middle of it, and you're going to go down. So nice attempt there. The splash wall really helps with that survivability. Atlas doesn't even see or can react to the player behind them, but they are able to maneuver away thanks to the assist from Hawaiian with that splat, despite that Content Cat losing 2 members. But I think that's been the story of this game, is both teams have had this fascinating ability to get back into the action so quickly. Content Cat with their beacons, Poltergeist with just the raw jumps to their teammates here. So it never feels like the fight that takes place in mid ever truly goes away.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this, again, just constant aggression from Poltergeist to be able to just be at multiple areas at the same. It feels like they're at multiple areas on the stage at the same time, but the Cat's finally trying to catch on to that. There's only 5 ticks remaining on the zone. They had to move in now if they want to take it, but no, the painting power from Cat is not enough. And with a 3-1 victory over Poltergeist, Cat will be your second qualified team here for our second Western qualifier.
Some great work there. The first seed comes through, and the second seed will inevitably pull through as well. Great job there as we see them getting set up. So now it will be what will happen with the third seed. Will the third seed make it through or not? As we go ahead and take a look here. We'll take a look at the bracket as well to get y'all caught up on what's going on. It is going to be Ascension and Non-Existence locked in a battle of 1v1, and Poltergeist and Takedown yet to go on. At the top there, you see Aternus and Content Cat still locked in as our 2 qualifiers out of 3 from the day that we will be going on for. So just 1 Dark remaining to be chosen, and that's out of the losers side of the bracket.
Yeah, I think the losers bracket is where it will get really, really interesting. I mean, obviously, any of these teams want to represent at the Splat World Series, right? But it's going to come down to how they play against one another here in these next 2 rounds. I mean, we've seen. Actually, I think we've seen every single one. Yeah, we have seen every single one of these teams so far in previous rounds. But Poltergeist going up against Takedown, and then of course, as you mentioned, Zach, Ascension going against Non-Existence is gonna be. It's the how things will shake up here is the thing I'm very much eager to watch here.
Well, we have our next match coming up soon, but before that, we will take a short break to give y'all a slight reprieve from the action, but don't go anywhere. We will have more from the second Western qualifier of the Splat World Series 26 in just a moment.
Don't say we can't, oh, just don't say another word. These thoughts you've imagined aren't real, aren't adding up. You fetched your ideas from nowhere, all from another world. Your logic's impaired, your full picture is cropped. 'Cause we both
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Zay Dem's between. My name is Dark. I'm here with Shiny Hunter Zach, and we're back with our losers bracket run for we're going to be seeing Poltergeist versus Takedown.
Yeah, this Takedown team should be really interesting. Came in as the 8th seed. We saw, of course, them take down, unironically, no pun intended, Owo to start the day. Took a game off of the number 1 overall seed, Eternus, and then have gotten a upset victory after that against Thriller Bark, which was the number 4 seed. So Tanner Tan here going to be on primarily mid-range shooters. Got the Forge Splattershot Pro in the 96, which we have not really seen. 96, there was a brief renaissance of 96 being used outside of Rainmaker. Have not really seen that today. Santo going to be on either that Carbon Deco or potentially the Luna Neo. You have Tufa, who was just cleaning up with the Custom Blaster, was one of the main offensive edges of that team. And then Arito going to be on the Tri-Stringer. Back-to-back Tri-Stringer players, if you could believe it.
Yeah, I love me some Stringers. Stringers is definitely one of my favorite new weapon classes coming in here. But that's besides the point here. We are getting started for our next round here. To kick off this our next match, to kick off this next round. I mixed up my wordings here, folks. But I do believe we're going into a bit of a hot start. We're not going to take a look at stage bans just yet, but we are going to look at what we're starting off with, which is going to be my own personal beloved Flounder Heights.
The first bullet point, I think, kind of locks it down. It is the most vertical map, and it is, I think, dodged by a lot of players for that reason, but beloved by others for that same reason. You look at a weapon like the Carbon Deco, has an absolute field day. It takes the play style of playing where you cannot be seen and elevates it to 11. This is going to be another very interesting 2-zone stage. So not something we see too often, but there's going to be that great area separating the 2 zones on the overlay. And the anchor players, I'm interested to see where these bow players end up, because there is a small square area behind the zone, but you're kind of cornering yourself if you enter there. The other place, which is where the E-Leader would normally set up, is all the way back by that air conditioning unit closer to spawn. But do you, as a Tri-Stringer, have enough range to make an impact on the zone or get the picks the way you want to if you're set up there, especially on the further away zone, which would be to your right? So some interesting short range players are going to have a field day, just kind of roaming around, flanking whoever they want. We've seen players like Cap doing that. It would be interesting to see that happen on Flounder Heights.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cap definitely is probably gonna be one of the players to really watch out for here on this stage specifically, because we've seen them just being, as you said, Zach, just someone that goes around, flanks around, takes a lot of these awkward angles here. But as we do the kickoff, I do think we do see Cap switch off from the 52 to the Octobrush here, probably a Flounder Heights specialty here, as we also see a Carbon Roller coming out on the side of Takedown.
Yeah, both the Octobrush and the Carbon going to be running that Ninja Squid to retain as much of an element of surprise as they can. Arito basically playing right on top of her, just behind the zone. Spec going to go down as we see Zekrom looking for picks here. And so the anchor players, to answer that earlier question, having to play right next to the zone, gets popped immediately, though. So after a bit of back and forth, took 30 seconds for these teams to figure out who's going to take the zone first. It will be Takedown making that claim.
Yeah, and I like how Takedown moving as a unit, moving down that ramp to claim space, claim territory to try and slow down Poltergeist on the incoming here. Caparoni comes in with the Zipcaster, finds 2 before getting pushed back here. Santa now being the last player to make his last stand here on the zone, gets a falling shot with the Trizuka before getting Takedown, and because of that, Takedown is the team that is still in control of the zone, albeit with just the single zone here, but no penalty points applied, which is, I think, is crucial for this hold.
Yeah, Arito, it feels like, has had free reign as well. So that brings good defense from their team, their partners, in having the space to basically lock down the zones for as long as they can. And they're facing some staunch opposition, things like the Zipcaster that can come their way and be immediately pressuring them back. And look at that, they don't even need to use the triple ink strike. They will unfortunately go down right after that. Santo getting multiple there in addition to the burst bomb finale onto Zekrom. Thought that might be enough for Poltergeist to survive, but Takedown holds the zone that entire time and continues their progress.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Poltergeist right now, what more can you do? You don't have these specials online. You have to fight an uphill battle, quite literally right now, against Takedown. There really isn't much more you can do in a scenario like that other than just accept your fate and watch as the time tracks.
Facing some stiff competition here. The only loss they've faced so far to the #1 overall seed and first qualifier that we've had today. And look what they're making do with. They are forcing Poltergeist to use specials away from the objective, right behind it. And as I mentioned before we got started, boxing themselves in. That is a paradise for players like the Carbon Roller and the Blaster to make work of. You want them to be in as isolated a position as possible. And normally that means you catch them out by themselves, but it can also mean, and have great effect to mean, you get most of the team in an area where they just cannot escape and cannot outrange you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I liked how Takedown really just used a lot of their strengths there to keep Poltergeist in check here. But that's just still the first game of this best of 5. We still have plenty of time, at least from Poltergeist here, to readjust to Takedown here, to try exactly how they want to take their tempo against them. Brian Water Springs being a band strucken down stage here this time around. We are free from the Brian Water Springs for this set at the very least, but we are seeing exactly what Takedown wants to strike down next. And honestly, I don't know what might be on the table for them. I don't know what they want to try and get rid of. I don't remember what they struck down the last time we were on this stage with them, but we'll see here in just a moment.
I do want to pick the brains of those that have competitive experience about why Crableg and Manta are some of the first bans that we see, especially Crableg. Like, more often than not, it's gone as soon as they can get it. Brine Water, we've seen played on and off. This one, they're going to choose to ban it. Umami, same story. We've seen it a good bit. They choose to ban it. So we're taking stages off the board that have seen consistent play in this event in particular, where it seems like the initial ban stages are for just getting stages out that we may not have seen today, but that is for a particular reason, which is they do not feel confident at all, even if that just means we don't find it fun for going to that stage. And sometimes it could just be that simple of a reason as we await Poltergeist pick.
Yeah, it's I would like to be able to like grab like team data, like this is why we banned this stage at this time, right? But you know, to ask like what, how many teams we have here, how many players we have here, to provide feedback on that scale, I think is very highly unlikely. But I think it'd still be very interesting data to get, nonetheless, if it's possible. But no, Poltergeist still really mulling over as to exactly what they want to bring their next game to. There's still a few standouts in terms of like this stereotypical Splat Zone maps to be played here, like Mahi Mahi Resort, there's Barnacle and Dime, Rubble Ramen, you know, those haven't been stricken out just yet, as well as Urchin Unfast. Maybe we might see a pivot to there, but no, our pivot here is going to be Barnacle Dime once again.
Earlier, of course, than we have seen it played in the past. This has been more so reserved as a Game 5 performance area than it is for a Game 2 kind of show me how you can recover state. But for Poltergeist, they need to pull out all of the stops if they want to get this one done. Yes, it is a best of 5 instead of a best of 3, but you are going to not need to force yourself to play from behind the entire rest of the set. Winning Game 2 going to make it an even playing field as opposed to playing constantly from behind if you lose Game 2. So the counter pick comes in. I think Poltergeist feeling pretty confident on this one coming in. They were able to survive the onslaught that Non-Existence put together in that Game 5 scenario back in Winners Round 2. So we'll have to see how that looks from them in a not dissimilar scenario, and some changes coming through as Zekrom will be on the heavy splat lane.
Heavy Splatling is a nice change of place in terms of just the general viewing experience here. Not a weapon that has been seeing more and more presence as of late, but has kind of died down just a little bit in presence and more recent history, but still a very powerful weapon, very strong weapon nonetheless here. As out the gate, we do see Poltergeist gets the first few points on the board here as Takedown's trying to fight for control here over mid, over the zone here, as somehow, I lost how, but the Zekrom did get taken out here. Oh, I see it now, Tufa.
Yeah, Tufa is the player, that caused a lot of difficulties in the previous set that we got to watch. That is an important player to take down early, as Tanner going to be on the NZAP. That's been the second most preferable, if not the most preferable weapon of choice in terms of a tactical weapon, alongside the Sniper Rider 5H. Is Tufa going to allow, with the help of their team, tapping the zone to press forward. And for now, Poltergeist kind of locked down, and they're trickling a little bit too. They've been able to get a couple picks onto takedowns, so Tufa having to retreat can't be as aggressive as you want to if you don't have the manpower backing you up. And Santo going down to that Booyah Bomb is not going to help, as it's a pretty easy takedown from Poltergeist when they're getting picks from a distance like that.
Yeah, and now as we see, Poltergeist is properly set up now here. Those penalty points have been chipped away. They have taken the lead here. So we see exactly how Takedown plays this retake here on their side. They do see that we get a pick from Miner. We do see there are two more players going down. Make that a wipeout as well. Takedown playing it cool, playing it steady, comes in, wipes him out, and moving in quickly here to retake zone, retake space, so they can match the incoming players from Poltergeist.
If you're a Carbon Deco, playing with an NZAP must be like a dream. If you can be coordinated, it just puts out so much ink. And not that the heavy Splatling doesn't. It uses an incredible amount of ink, but it has the charge time, and it does not play at a similar range extreme to you. That being said, the Custom Blaster is going to go down, as Caparoni doing such a great job of locking things down in that Float Aura state. They will nearly single-handedly take the zone. They were able to take control away, at least, from Takedown. But Takedown with that lead, they'll continue it forward here. Spec going to try and get any stragglers remaining. And I've seen this ideology consistently play out, where teams are prioritizing, even when it would behoove them to take the zone earlier, getting the picks and allowing those additional ticks to come through as the wipeout happens as well.
Yeah, wipeout for Takedown, even though that we do get to see that fun flick from Tufa, does not bode well for them in the grand scheme of things here, as it allows Poltergeist to get reset up once again here in mid, position themselves to get ready for this incoming push here from Takedown. Booyah Bomb is spent, Tanner gets shut down right into the face, super jumps do come in here from Takedown to try and cause some chaos, cause some mayhem here. Tufa hanging behind that ledge here to try and go someone to approach them, but the Tacticaler does not abide to that very well, as they're not going to be approaching here, forcing a fight on that end. But at the end of the day, Tanner forces themselves through nonetheless and takes the zone.
And this is because there are two methodologies to play the NZAP. There's people who play the NZAP truly like a support weapon, and there's people who play the NZAP like it's a 52. And playing the NZAP like it's 52 can still give you some major results in terms of 2-3 down splats that you can provide for your team. It allows a player like Miner to continue playing as this sort of skirmisher that wants to prioritize their life, and in this case is prioritizing the super chumps that are coming out from Takedown. Tacticaler and Wavebreaker are expended here, so they are really trying to lock Takedown away from this zone. The Trizuka going to help to briefly stop that momentum, but the penalty points are gone. Spec staying barely alive. They're able to regenerate their health, but there's just no one from Takedown able to contest the zone. And as a result, Poltergeist makes great use of their counter pick selection and ties this matchup at 1.
Yeah, I mean, Poltergeist did a very well job of taking those advantages and really locking really locking Takedown in place, especially with how Specs out here is just holding this front line here, compiling that with Cap as this oddly aggressive NZAP that also pivots a lot of the times. That's just this painting machine, it's just a good storm of just how their weapons and their playstyles line up to just really flip the script this time around.
It may be odd, but if it works, it works. And it is a strong weapon to bring to the table. It is one of the best ones for getting Tacticaler, and it can really hold its own. The accuracy is something that you don't get with the 52. With the 52, a lot of players, they just try and get as close to their enemy as possible. They don't even worry about the range element of it. They just want that quick PTK whenever they can get it. The NZAP, I feel like you more so want to play at your range extreme as we await Poltergeist's next banned stages. No Mako Mark this time around, and no Humpback Pump Track. Not that we've gone there on stream today yet, but a few teams have not wanted to take the chance, including Poltergeist, who will ban it out. That gives Takedown the opportunity to select a stage, and still some strong ones out there. We've seen Undertow Spillway at the beginning of the day. We've seen Robo Ramen once or twice. Definitely with Flounder Heights being the starting one, there's still lots of things on the table like Mahi Mahi and Hagglefish. So in terms of common picks, lots to go to, and it will indeed be Hagglefish Market.
Yeah, Hagglefish Market returning yet again here, a tried and true for a reason. You know, it's definitely a kind of a best of both worlds for both the flankers and the backline specifically. You know, you have the left-right avenues to try and flank around a lot and circumnavigate a lot of mid. You also have tents to really allow your backlines to anchor down and take a lot of space, not take a lot of space, keep a lot of space from that high vantage point, you know? So it's not a surprise that we see Hagglefish Market get picked here.
And we'll see if we're going to be surprised by the weapon selections. Both teams with a game under their belt in this best of 5, trying to move on to what would be a deciding in terms of qualification match. And there is what I've been waiting for. It wasn't from Hawaiian, but we will indeed see a Bulbs tri-stringer come through with that Inkjet online, and Zekrom going to be on that heavy Splatling once again as we see the NZAP duels returning.
Yeah, NZAP is gonna be from is from Takedown. And there's scattered words right now. There's a lot of is happening right now at the same time here. There's so many fights, so many specials being popped out right out of the gate just to try and leverage some strengths onto your favor here. But it looks like Takedown maybe the one who's trying to finally coming out on top here. Not quite, as Ariatel is looking to try and zone out the remainder of Poltergeist, pushing them back bit by bit. Booyah Bomb does come out from them as Tufa is on the flanking side, but opts to jump out once they've been spotted.
Yeah, Tufa gonna make sure those walls are painted for future engagements, but Poltergeist spotting them out early. Tufa now has the triple splashdown, does not quite fully do what they want it to do, I think, but if they go down, they have the tactical buff. Tanner still playing this NZAP like it is a hyper offense weapon, but Arito quietly in the back, getting into this flow or state, and that'll help contribute to a wipeout.
Yeah, a good wipeout here allows Takedown to really clean up the plate here, really take some space here to try and meet the incoming from Poltergeist here. We don't have any specials online just yet from either side here, but it's going to be a leverage of who can get the specials first and properly use them first. Specs now looking to try and engage on this right-hand side against someone to try and pull away from this hold from Takedown. But in the midst of that chaos here, the trajectory thrown on the zone to really try apply a lot of pressure here to potentially capture it as Takedown takes it back once again. Ready to force to pop up the Inkjet here to get a pick, create some space for the remainder of their team, but Poltergeist takes the zone finally here.
Yeah, and Santo having a bear of a time getting around with this Carbon Deco. It is not a stage that's very forgiving if you're not able to make great use of those alleyways, or if you're trying to lock down the zone itself. Tanner having to play a bit further back as Poltergeist seems to have more power in terms of laying down ink onto the stage. They're finally able to take the zone with no additional penalty point given, and so they're chewing through their score so far. Santo now being the one to try the flank, but they just don't have the range. That's why I think you sometimes see Splat Roller more commonly played, is because you can play a similar playstyle, but with a range that will give you a slightly better chance at getting those picks and then disappearing back into the night.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm looking through it here, it's really hard to see exactly how Takedown can properly re-engage here, with considering the short rangeness of both the blaster and the carbon roller. Because once you're in a position like this, you don't have a lot of play, you don't have a lot of playing room to try and use those two aggressive weapons to the best of your ability. You kind of just get choked out for resources here. And as we're seeing here, Poltergeist is now pushing Takedown to the limits here, pushing them, cornering up to the back of the wall against the wall. They have the lead as well here, and now they're cycling through the specials to really ensure they can take this victory.
And victory looking like a possibility for Poltergeist here, as only just now is Takedown trying desperately to break out, but they did so with barely having a semblance of stage control. So they will go down 3 as a result. Arito holds on to this uninkable tarp here, but they are well within range of that slosher, and it is more about keeping them away from the zone at that point, as one of the more strongly held games we've seen all day will go to Poltergeist. So that's 2 games in a row from them, 1 game away from moving on to our next round of the losers bracket, where we would have a qualification match, and we will not see non-existence in regardless. So there will not be a rehashing of that previous exciting 5-game series, as non-existence in will go down 3-1 to Ascension. Ascension, of course, the team that took Eternus, the #1 overall seed, to a Game 5 themselves. And Ascension currently awaiting the winner of this match, who will move on. So Takedown, hoping it's them. They've got some work to do, as they will make the next stage pick. Poltergeist with 2 stage bans to take place before that. But Takedown, more so than in any other game and any other team in this match, has not had the answers.
Yeah, no, I mean, at this stage, you know, if you're Takedown, you ask yourself, like, what's the shake-up that needs to be done here? Because you had the pick here, you had the opportunity here to really take this next game against Poltergeist with your own map pick, but that's not how things panned out. So, looking to see exactly what Poltergeist bans or strikes out next, you ask, if you're Takedown, like, okay, what's the game plan here at this point? Because you definitely don't want to lose out this next game here. You want to stay alive for as long as you can to try and continue on to potentially go for that qualifying match, but you just lost the pick against Poltergeist against Poltergeist. You know what I'm trying to say. Words are hard.
I do. And with Poltergeist banning Marlin Airport and Ship Shape Cargo Co., the onus goes to Takedown to pick something definitive. They need a definitive way with their composition to win, and they maybe even need definitive elements of the stage that lean more so into their composition. And Hagglefish, I think, maybe just did not provide enough of that. Some still pretty commonly played stages available. You have Urchin Underpass with that huge trek that you need to get over to the middle of the stage. You have something like a Scorch Gorge, which, yes, a lot of teams have banned today, but is going to give you, a huge zone to kind of play Ring Around the Rosie with if you want to have some of your flanking weapons go around. It will be the more commonly selected Urchin Underpass that we do indeed go to. Firstly stated there, rugged terrain. They're going to have to make strong use of that terrain unless they want to dare to jump to one of their teammates or swap over to a beacon weapon. But we'll have to see how this one plays, because as mentioned previously, a lot of this is played either in the alleyways or on that hill area as opposed to strictly on the zone.
Yeah, and the other thing to know here as well is that this is a very big map here, and I do believe that at least one of these team players has a weapon that could pivot to the beacon alternate kit here to potentially remedy some of that pain of the larger map here. It's hard to say exactly if that's what they want to do here, but it is at the very least an option on the table here. But yeah, the small zone makes fighting here in mid maybe a bit awkward, maybe a bit not ideal, but that's besides the point here. We are going into our 4th game here to see exactly if Poltergeist can take this next game, or if Takedown can take this next game and potentially stay alive for this set a little bit longer.
Have to break out of your comfort zone if you want to go anywhere in life. And of course, if you want to win this set, Takedown's going to have to make it an uncomfortable experience for Poltergeist to force that game 5. We see these teams initially just locking down that hill and ramp area. Santo, once again, on the carbon roller. They're going to have an early Tacticooler online, and that may enable Tufa to move forward. There's going to be some resistance there, but for now, neither team until now wanting to commit to this lower elevation, this moat-like area that the zone is in. Poltergeist, the team that is going to do it first, and they will reap the benefits as they hold on to control.
Yeah, good opener Ooh, excuse me. A good opener from Poltergeist here to get the first points on the board, to put some pressure on takedown early enough before just backing up, not wanting to get caught out here, especially from Tufa on the aggression here, as they use the super jumps to claim some space, claim some territory to allow themselves to get ready for this next team fight here against Poltergeist. We do see the Wavebreaker come out to create some space for themselves, calling out the Carbon Roller in particular, which is a good flip to get themselves moving forward, but Tufa hiding around the corner catches Miner out, but the damage was not devastating enough as Poltergeist was still able to take control of the zone.
It's going to be Cap advancing forward here. They will get the Tactical online first. So the one member going down there should be back in short order. But this is playing very similarly to how Hagglefish played in terms of the fight in mid or around mid never really goes away. There has not been, I feel like, a full reset moment for either team. They've just been slowly advancing further and further away from the zone until they inevitably lose out on one of those team fights and the enemy is able to cap. In this case, it is Takedown who's trying to reclaim that lead, but they'll lose one of the tips of the spears, I like to call them, in their Slayer player, Tufa. Santo going to go down shortly after, and Erito likely not long for this world as soon as Poltergeist is able to regroup and get back by the zone.
Yeah, Erito doing their best to try and delay Poltergeist as much as they can to allow the remainder of their players to reconvene here on this incoming. The Wheel Bomb stacking with the Wavebreaker does provide a lot of area denial against Takedown here, as Poltergeist is able to clean up, get a few picks to potentially push Takedown out proper here up mid, but not without setting up their own super jumps to slow down that pacing as well. The zone goes back into Poltergeist's favor here, but they do lose out on 2 players, make that 3 players as well. Takedown still on top.
Wipeout comes through as Takedown locks the zone in their favor. Tanner still playing this NZAP aggressively, but has to back off. And I really want to see what Santo does here, because Santo immediately gets taken down, and that was my worry. My fear is that I just don't know how they're going to claim space. They want to be sneaky, they want to go undetected, but there's such great sightlines here for Poltergeist that there's not really an opportunity for them to flank around. But despite that struggle, they stay on the Carbon Roller, and it's a 3 down as Poltergeist gets the zone back. And this has been super even through 3 games. Teams just getting 10, 15 points at a time on the zone and then immediately losing it back out. Poltergeist now in the stage where they're making progress with that penalty gone.
Yeah, this is where the lead extension can be pretty much brutal for Takedown here if they don't make the right moves. We do see that the splashdown is online for Takedown, as stacking that with 2 players down, they're able to move in quickly, get the zone flipped immediately, and potentially hunt down Specs now as the last player standing. That's the delayed wipeout here, and this is their opportunity here to set up camp, set up shop, to really take as much space as they can to try and hold the incoming players from Poltergeist. But we do see Erito going down, which I think is more crucial here if it was someone like Tufa or Tanner.
Yeah, that's just the trouble though. Santo, they're able to get the pick, but as soon as they peek out, they are hunted down relentlessly. That was Caffaroni forcing them into a corner, even with the Trizuka online, and making it so difficult for them to get any value. Miner looking for the pick by dancing around the tree, but they will lose out on that bout. And Tanner also not able to get the better of Zekrom with 50 seconds left to go. This backliner, this anchor here for Poltergeist, doing a great job of not just keeping the zone held up, but also allowing their team like a living beacon to come back through. And despite the penalty to 40, it's still a tall order for a Takedown, who has had trouble staying on top of this hill as multiple go down to Spexow entering that Flow Aura state, and it's going to be maybe a last-ditch effort needed from Takedown.
Yeah, there's not a lot of time, a lot of space left from Takedown here to potentially try and extend this victory, this fight a little bit longer here. Miner hiding under these ledges to potentially call someone out, gets called out instead here, which is a good swing for Takedown to potentially try and take control of this zone here in the last 10 seconds. You need to throw anything and everything to be the ones in the lead here and to potentially go for an overtime victory. In this scenario here, 3 down, make that a wipeout. That's exactly the textbook conditions you need to for an overtime victory here, as now it's all up to Takedown's front line here to hold it for the next 20 ticks.
Okay, uncharted territory here. Santo had made it all the way up to the drop down, and they're forced to jump out. Tanner all the way on the left side of your screen. Is Caproni going to try and sneak through? Erito's there to watch out for them. Gets super low, stays alive. Neither one wants to give an inch, and that's lead lost as another wipeout comes through. What a fitting end to a back and forth game with a wipeout and a steal from Takedown. And for the third time on stream today, we are going to a game 5.
Oh man, Takedown does not want to get taken down without a fight here. Camperoni at the end here tried everything they had in their arsenal to potentially prevent this overtime victory against Poltergeist, but no, it just wasn't enough. And now we're sitting in a 2-2 scenario, game number 5, and I'm in awe right now.
I mean, the situation, like the problems I set up for a player like Santo kind of go away if you get a wipeout, right? There's nobody to block your advancement of space, so you just get as much space as you want. And Santo, to their credit, had the great wherewithal to not overstay their welcome. They jump out as soon as they notice a hint of danger or that they might be facing multiple people at the same time, and the rest of their team is able to survive as a result. So it is a high-risk gambit, but one that in the end pays off for Takedown. And so now Takedown with the last chance to strike some stages, Poltergeist with the last selection that we will have in this match. And we take a look at what Takedown has already banned: Crableg, Museum, Brine Water, and Umami. They add Eeltail Alley to the mix. That's kind of been a late stage selection. They're like, we don't want to risk going to such a huge zone in a pivotal game 5 scenario. Thinking hard about what they want to do with that last pick. I could imagine something like a Bluefin Depot would not be dissimilar in terms of why you're banning it. Even a Sturgeon Shipyard for how far away the zone is on that stage makes sense. And then Mincemeat, some of the similar problems to stages that have been banned already today. So it just kind of comes down to a pick your poison for what you want to ban as far as finding yourself and finding that strategy, which the strategy was, and it is indeed Bluefin Depot. I get one right every once in a blue moon, but enabling Santo to move forward, because that has to be one of your biggest priorities. But they are at the whims of Poltergeist here, who makes their selection.
And now we're seeing what Poltergeist wants to do. We do have a few traditional stages, if you want to put that in quotation marks, a la Robo Ramen, Undertale Spillway, Mahi Mahi Resort. You know, you can make an argument for Inkling Art Academy, but that's more for the tower control variety. But no, we are going to be going in courtesy for Poltergeist's counter pick here, Mahi Mahi Resort.
So again, we talked last time, and the spotlight in the last instance was, you know, Bubbles getting the big bubbler put down at the opportune time. You have to be the first one to touch the zone. It's kind of this mad dash to get there. It'll still be a mad dash, but it is more for the reason of you want to claim the most premier positions to peek out from, because again, there's tons of low walls, tons of cushions, obstacles that you can play behind, but there's also lots of corners, and we've seen these teams struggle with playing in isolated areas. And it's not as though there's walls that are blocking you from anywhere, just a watery grave, if you will, that blocks you from making any forward progress. So you do not want to be in one of the situations that Santo was in that last game, for example, where they're kind of in desperation using that Trizuka nearly against a wall. You want to give a player like that the ability to free roam across the stage. So game 5, let's see if Poltergeist or Takedown will advance to the deciding qualifier match.
Yeah, it all stacks up to this here, folks. Neither team wants to go home here and now. After all the time, after all the energy committed to make it this far, they want to be the one to, at the very least, fight for that qualifier match here. But out the gate, Poltergeist does a very good job of getting some semblance of control here in mid. We do see Miner get taken out pretty early on. Santo getting a trade in return here. 2 players down from Poltergeist allows Takedown to clean up here in mid. Jump out from Tanner here as Zekrom still holds it pretty strong here, as it's not a cleared mid just yet.
And this is a strong stage, it feels like, for a Splat League. You can take your time when you're playing. We keep saying ring around the rosy, but you can take your time charging up and making the most of it. However, Zekrom, one of the last bastions surviving for Poltergeist, is Takedown is starting to implement their strategy. Tufa, you know, was one of the names that we mentioned a lot the first time we saw this team. They've taken a back seat in some instances to players like Tanner and Santo just because of the plays that have happened, but Tufa still remains a pivotal piece of this composition. They're not playing near the drop downs either, so this will allow Poltergeist to get in. They have the triple ink strike to ride in on the back of, but can they get the picks with their raw weapons? It looks like it's mostly trades. It's a 2v1 situation, but it'll work out in Poltergeist's favor.
Yeah, now being the ones to get the first points on the board on their end, I gotta say, I think Takedown was a little bit too passive there on their hold. They're giving too much space to Poltergeist to allow themselves to be able to move up front, move up forward, and be able to break the line from Takedown. Now they're the ones who's going to be struggling against here, especially if you're a blaster or a roller having to play against this painted area. It could be a bit awkward. It could be a bit difficult to try and break through here, but it's not out of the realm of possibility yet, as we've seen what Takedown has done so far here. We do see Tanner take a fight here, moving in with a partner on this left-hand side to try and pull some tension away from the line, break it up a little bit. 2 players down from Poltergeist means that Tufa was able to come in with the splashdown, contest the zone, potentially flip it into their favor for the remainder of Takedown here. Santo is still fighting in mid, but 2 goes down on their side, and Poltergeist still comes out on top.
And smartly with the jump out there. Again, if you're trying to play it, whether as a anchor support player, or if you're trying to play it as a Slayer player, you need to be with your team to capture the same area that your team is trying to take, not be overly advantageous. And it works out. Tanner, despite going down there, able to help give a penalty back over to Poltergeist. Spec playing around this uninkable area will get taken down, and Miner falls next to the Tacticooler. So the Tacticooler, I see a couple sodas on there still. Not everybody from Poltergeist able to benefit. In fact, 3 still remaining. So maybe a special not ideally used there for Poltergeist, and that has given players like Arito, who are in that flow or estate from Takedown, the ability to move forward while they retain that lead.
Yeah, this forward hold from Takedown is looking to try and stall out Poltergeist as best they can, get the picks they need, bait out the specials they can, so they can just keep continuing this pressure, this onslaught from them. Tufo goes in a little bit too deep, gets traded out here by Miner here, as Tanner cleans it up here, and Poltergeist is once again in the backseat. Takedown is set up pretty well, especially under these ledges. You gotta be mindful of Tufa and Santo here, as they're just desperately waiting for someone to overstep just a little bit too far forward, a little bit too much forward. Santo calls out, sparks out, and that's a huge swing to get things back and going for Takedown.
Yeah, Santo, I think, found the exact person you were describing, that they were getting a little bit overly aggressive and got into the range of their Carbon Roller Deco. And another pick there coming out against Cap. It's a trade onto Tufa, so the Slayer player is going to be trading out, and Poltergeist now finally back in the driver's seat here, and Miner will be the main person responsible for watching this premier drop down. But Santo has the Trizuka online. They are able to find multiple picks on the zone itself, so that creates a huge opening for Takedown to get right back into the action. It is the one semblance of range that they have, and they make use of it well. Despite that, Miner putting up a strong defense. Looked like they entered a flow or a state right as they went down, and that allowed their remaining members to stay next to the zone. It is a small enough zone to where a full triple splashdown will take it, but it's trades galore here, for which Poltergeist may come out of it unscathed.
Yeah, I'm honest though, it's so hard to keep track of who's actually going to be the one coming out on top, because of these constant trades being used, constant flips being made on the zone, constant specials being thrown out here. It's such a mess here in mid of purple and yellow, and Takedown though comes back once again to hold the zone. 3 now for Poltergeist down. Zekrom forced to back up here. 20 seconds remaining. They're currently in the lead. There's just one last chance for Poltergeist to try and hold on and win this set here.
Pick onto Santo could be what they need, and here they come. The wave breaker coming out, the triple splashdown going to be used to counter. Tufa goes down directly after with 5 seconds left to go. They have enough on the zone, but they don't have enough pain, and that's 2 down in quick succession. Great job by Takedown to lock this zone down in the waning seconds of this one. And unbelievably, Takedown will win it in a Game 5 scenario as the 8th seed, and they will move on to play Ascension for the final qualifying spot.
I mean, I gotta give props to Takedown. They've been on their run so far to make it this far. You start off the day 2-0 against OL, which is great. You go down 1-3 against Eternus. You sent to losers bracket, but 2-1 against Thriller Park, 3-2 against Poltergeist. They're kind of close games, but you still use your knowledge, your adaptability to come out the end there. And now you're going up against Ascension here, who got being out by Eternus as well. So I'm very excited to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, Takedown and Ascension not having played each other yet. They were around the same time in winner's bracket. It was Eternus beating Takedown 3-1. Ascension winning in that round 3-2 over Thriller Bark. So the first time we've seen these teams match up with each other, and why should they? It's an 8 versus 5 matchup. It's a very confusing time to play each other. We take a look at the bracket here. There are your two already qualified teams in what's listed as the finals, Eternus and Content Cat. And I just want to say, what a banger of a series so far. Outside of the first round of each of these sides of the bracket, there has only been one sweep, and that was in a best of 3 on the loser side of the bracket, all the way through the winner's side outside of that, and the rest of the losers matches in what there says round 3 and beyond, at least one game taken off the opponent. What a treat to be able to cast over.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very much an entertaining series to watch throughout this entirety, you know, and now heading to losers bracket to see the third and final qualifying match here for SWS. This is where it all boils down to, you know. This is gonna be the last team that will be representing us here in the main event coming up soon, and Takedown versus Ascension. All the pressure, all the stacks, all that momentum is really on these players right here and now.
Yeah, and take a look, you know, to remind you of Ascension's roster. We have Sam, Chivas, Mirage, and Cool Ace. Cool Ace was the one primarily playing that Luna Neo, you know, getting in the faces of their opponent. A lot of the strategy around Ascension was getting Cool Ace into those drop-down territory pieces. Shiva, who went by Manzana in game, was the other piece of that. They were kind of a lower key 52 gal player, but they clutched up in some very important pivotal moments. Sam on that Splash-O-Matic gave an element of range and high ground with the Crab Tank. The frequent usage of that plays similarly to an N-Zap. And then Mirage, rounding things out, can play a ton of what we've seen lots of today. Dapple Dualies, Heavy Splatling, and that Snipe Rider 5H all give you different options for different stages. So Ascension is going to be a team that is difficult to lock into a stage, unlike a team that has, for example, a roller player. It's going to be tougher to stuff them into a box, if you will, because they are going to be inherently more adaptable.
Yeah, it's very much a fight of how these teams utilize their specific strengths over one another. The lineup from Ascension with that Splash combined with the Blaster from Cool Ace, I think is, as well as potentially the 52 from Shiva, provides a very lethal front lining. But of course, you have the roller, the carbon roller, as well as the blaster over on the side, a takedown, which could be also just as lethal, if not even more lethal, with the right conditions. So can Ascension actually make sure that they don't allow those conditions for takedown to thrive and deny that? I think that's how a lot of these fights might boil down to.
Yeah, Cool Ace versus Tufa going to be an interesting matchup of the Blaster players. You have somebody like Santo, who comes in with that Carbon Deco and is going to fulfill maybe a similar role to even Cool Ace as well, where they want to be hiding in that drop down. And outside of that, Arito versus Mirage going to be super interesting. You don't have Bow v Bow. You have Bow versus more traditional backline components in terms of the Snipe Rider and the Heavy in particular. And so where we start is going to be, it's going to make a huge difference, because there's going to be everything at your disposal. You are mostly making bans of only the emergency or most important stages, and otherwise are playing for the long game in case, as we've seen plenty of times in this event, you go to a game 4 or game 5 scenario where that pool of stages to select from is much smaller. So should be interesting to get down which of our either 8th or 5th seeded teams we'll be watching will take our last spot to join their fellow Western teams to play in the Splat World Series 26 finals, because as we know, there is tons of high caliber competition waiting for us in the East.
Yeah, the main event is something I've been looking forward to for quite a while here. So to finally see this last team potentially get in here and now is very much the thing. It's the cherry on top for this run, upstanding build up for the main event. But in order before we even get to that, we do need to actually make sure we play this set through here. And in order to play that set through, we do need to get our next set of stages struck down here. And I do believe with how this seeding works, it should be Takedown is getting the first strike down, or is it Ascension? Ascension getting the first strike down. My brain fried after a while, but you know what, we got there at the end of the day. So I'm curious exactly how Ascension wants to strike out first here to kick off this this set.
I mean, Crabble Capital is a safe bet. That's one that's been going, by the wayside very quickly, very often. Flounder Heights, I think teams are of two minds on. Some teams love it. Other teams want to ban it as soon as possible. Ascension, if they are concerned about Santo on the Carbon Deco, maybe you ban Flounder just to get that out of the pool. Otherwise, maybe just ones that, again, you don't ever want to see in the pool. Your Mincemeats, your Hammerheads, ones like that that'll just be kind of a pain for everyone to play, as opposed to decidedly one team having an advantage there over the other. And as mentioned earlier, Ascension likely the more adaptable composition. They were the team, I believe, that we saw play on Marlin Airport the one time that we got to see that one played through. So even on stages that don't come up that often, they feel like they can rise to the occasion. And that was, if I remember correctly, the one game that they took off of Eternus. So should be interesting, as Flounder Heights is indeed the first one banned. Manta Maria, the other one that has been banned a ton, will join that roster.
Yeah, no surprise for those two, or even these three stages getting struck down, because Museum Delfonsina is also a very popular stage to take out of the rotation here from most of the teams we see so far today here. But Takedown thinking long and hard on their last stage to strike out here. There's still a bit of it's the question of, do you want to maybe take out something that favors Ascension, or do you want to check out something that you just is awkward and you don't want to leave up to chance to play, like something like Lemuria Hub or Marlin Airport or Crabble Capital. I'm surprised that's still up here at this point of the game. Or even, I think Humpback Pump Jack also is like not necessarily top popular pick to strike out, but also not uncommon either.
We did get some notes on specifically Crabble Capital for why it does get banned more often than others. Namely, the routes for entry, pretty easy to watch for the defending team. A lot of players go backline heavy or anchor heavy in terms of, countering that. And backline just seems to be good for that stage in general. And there's some punishing drop down areas that can make, utilizing the entirety of the stage quite difficult and make your errors on a stage like that even more amplified. Manta was also mentioned too. Manta being one of the bans that we've seen, not just today in general, but also as one of the first bans in this stage. Have mentioned how far you have to go from spawn just to get to the zone itself. It is a slog to get there. And the charger angles are kind of awkward. You're either peeking over a set of grates, like right directly down into where the zone is, or you are all the way on the far right hand side. But we have our stage. We don't have to wait this time to see it. It'll be Mahi Mahi Resort right out of the gate.
Mahi Mahi Resort. I mean, we just witnessed the Mahi Mahi game, so I don't think there's too much that we need to cover here on how this stage acts and plays and moves around here. But no, I'm very much excited and eager to see exactly how things move here from either of these two teams. Mahi Mahi, to recap just a little bit, Mahi Mahi Zones is definitely a stage that kind of allows, not allows, what's the word I'm trying to look for? I lost the word I'm looking for, but it encourages, that's the word, a lot of these more aggressive playstyle, a lot of these more aggressive weapons, especially when the water level is risen up to just be in your face, especially with the ledges that this stage has a lot of.
I think I understand why I personally don't like it, is because I oftentimes play very scared. My tagline on my player card is panicking Tri-Slosher user, and that's because I am very scared a lot of times of team fights, but you cannot play this stage scared. There are lots of obstacles, and you're going to be playing in some uncomfortable locations, either right next to the water or in very heavily contested territory. And you have to be confident in your ability. You have to be confident in maximizing your weapon's range. You have to be confident in poking out your opponent until they are in an inopportune position for them. And that is even more important before the rest of the stage unlocks, before that 60-point remaining, 40-point scored area. So I'm interested in where these teams opt to set up. I've seen mainly players like Miner, who's not going to be in this lobby. You know, they're on the Slosher, for example, taking up the common entry point with that little box. But there's not potentially a Slosher in this lobby. So who is going to take on that mantle? Is it going to be a 52 gal player? Is it going to be somebody like Santo on the carpet roller that's just going to wait instead of making themselves very well known? And how then are you going to allocate to watch the other main drop area, which is that grate all the way on the right that can give your anchor player a place to see pretty well, even when you're in a backed up position. So positioning, as in many stages, but especially on Mahi, pivotal to success.
Yeah, and I mean, I think looking at just a brief overview of what these teams are bringing to the table, at least weapon-wise, I think there's just a slight favor to Takedown's comp lineup because they both have that blaster and that carbon roller with Santo and Tufa. You know, you can really play with those ledges to just deny a lot of space and threaten a lot of Ascension and what they're trying to do here if they opt to do a more slow-paced game. But I think they're also a bit more on the aggressive side there, but I don't think they played that many AoE weapons, if memory serves me right here, so it's hard to say exactly what the lineup might actually end up looking like, what the game plan might end up actually looking like. But I think as an overall, Takedown seems, in my opinion, a bit more favorable on their end. But I digress here as we get this first game of this final set here to see who is our third qualifying team for the SWS.
So we will have some Blaster v Blaster action. Kool-Ace not rolling out with the Ludineo. It'll be the Vanilla Blaster giving themselves a bubbler. We saw how that strategy worked out in a previous set, although it was with two bubbles. Mirage going to be on the Snipe Rider, while on the opposite side of things for Takedown, they will stay with the NZAP that's been working for them very well. Ascension getting the zone first, and Chivas going down early. Kool-Ace, though, helping to keep things tucked away. The Super Chump not quite going to reach the zone either, but maybe will give enough space for Takedown to move forward. But Ascension, you talked about patience earlier, Dark, calm and cool under pressure, and Kool-Ace enabled as always.
Yeah, Kool-Ace being the prime here to play under that ledge here and really apply a lot of pressure against Takedown. It's going to be a bit of a fighting ground for both Tufa and Kool-Ace here to see who can come out on top here. Tanner is taken down by Sam here in thanks of the Crab Tank here, and bit by bit, Takedown slowly losing momentum here. Ascension and just running away with these points, finally contesting the zone at least a little bit thanks to Inkzuka, but it's still Ascension is in the driver's seat, only finally going down 3 players against them, make that delayed wipeout.
There you go. That'll give them a big penalty of 66, but it's been all Ascension so far. However, we know that with Takedown, their biggest struggle is getting into this position. This should be where they shine, and Santo immediately pulling out the Trizuka will get one low, but no picks found as they go down quickly. Tufa trying to follow that up with the triple splashdown will trade out with Mirage effectively, but that gets Ascension back in, and that becomes a problem for Takedown. Where is that staying power that they need? If this continues on, they will just get overwhelmed by Ascension anytime they're able to claim some territory, because Ascension has superior grouping up and regrouping capability.
Yeah, and I especially loved as well with watching Sam and Kool-Ace or Shiva. It was one of the two move in together there as a unit, allowing the slower player to play behind Sam and allowing Sam to move up forward and paint a lot in their wake here. But Takedown now moving in quickly, takes control of the zone once again to try and apply more pressure against Ascension here. We do see Shiva on the top and rope here to try and paint as much as they can, try to apply as much pressure as they can here. The killer whale is almost online, which could disrupt a lot of the movements from Takedown, make that 2 players down, potentially 3. The splashdown does come out as Tufa is making a breakaway with their life to try and take another player down before getting and eventually taken out.
You made a good point there about the killer whale. Most of the time, it feels like that special gets used just to refill the ink tank of the 52 in particular. On a stage like Mahi Mahi, though, it really can cause a problem because there are so many. It's like a maze of mirrors. There's so many things that you run into. There's not a clear path to get out a lot of times that's not easily contested. So it really can get some splats for you, as we see Chiva pulling it out now, only finding one member there on DeSanto, locks onto them instantly and will help facilitate the splat. They get a little overly aggressive there as they fall, but Erito going to go down to Kool-Aid, so the momentum will stay there in favor of Ascension. Tufa trying to change that. It's going to be the back line, though, that helps lock things down. Not just the Snipe Rider, but the Crab Tank as well. Ascension with layers to their composition. Even when you peel back their Skirmisher and their Slayer, there is an entire other half of that team to get through, and Takedown not able to peel back as many layers as they want, as Ascension will take game one.
Yeah, I mean, Ascension was in the driver's seat for the majority of that game there. Takedown had a few good shining moments against Ascension, pushing them back, I think, about 2 times throughout the course of that entire match. But at the end of the day, it is Ascension, and more explicitly Kool-Aid and Shiva. They're holding down the front line to apply so much pressure just to prevent Takedown from moving up at all.
But you want a player like Mirage on that team as well. I don't think you get nearly the success that you have consistently without Mirage enabling them, right? They're consistently, like, almost as though they're playing a precision sport and like basketball. And if they step their foot on the line, they're going to get a foul. They do not have a single toe over the line of that zone, but they are as close as they possibly can be, poking out anyone that happens to make it past that drop down. And the combination of perfectly being able to paint the zone with effectively one charge and also having enough range to keep anybody that gets past a player like Cool Ace at bay is just a wonderful thing to have to give your frontliners peace of mind. So Ascension, that is as textbook as a start as you want. Just about a little bit of back and forth with takedowns, so you learn more about them, you learn about their play style and where maybe they want to set up. And the main thing that can give Takedown some reprieve here is that they now get to make the selection for the stage in game 2.
Yes, we're now seeing exactly what Ascension is going to strike out before going over to the picks from Takedown here. I do wonder what's on the mind of Ascension and what they want to take out before allowing Takedown to take it to the next game. I was making my sense and knowing this. I'm so making my sense. Looking at the path mentally, I was like, I'm saying take 3 times in a row, aren't I? But Urchin Underpass and Humpback Contract is struck out by Ascension, so we do have a good amount of good stages left for Takedown to pick from.
Nobody even has threatened, I think, to go to Humpback Pump Track. I think people are just kind of looking over their shoulder like they think Humpback Pump Track is a bigger threat than it is, when really it doesn't seem like any team wants to go to Humpback Pump Track. But they'll hedge their bets just in case. Urchin Underpass, we have decidedly gone to multiple times during the day. And so that one will be stricken for the record here. So again, we see that split that a lot of teams have wagered 50-50 down the middle between, we're going to ban one stage that we decidedly don't like, that other teams will likely play, and another stage that basically nobody would like, just in case anyone is feeling like the Joker and they want to take a walk on the wild side. But instead, we go to a tried and true favorite here in Mako Mart. This one not banned out in time, and that will be our venue for game number 2.
Yeah, Makomar is definitely a stage that is known by a lot of the veterans and many of the current day players here, being the premier, one of the premier stages back in Splatoon 2. But even here, it still has that same legacy status. It's a very much a map that caters to a lot of different weapon types, a lot of different play styles, especially with these two teams. Specifically, the highlight's going to be Kool-Aid and Tufa on both on the blasters, since they can get so much value playing around the ledges, playing around the corner, and just playing around the map geometry Mako Mart gives.
Yeah, that's an important note too. You're going up against a blaster and a roller. Could be a reason why, for example, Humpback Pump Track is not selected, why that's banned, before it can be used, is because you have this moat-like structure going around the entirety of the King of the Hill style zone. That's basically a playground for those style of weapons that like to leap out when you least expect it and then get right back into where they can be submerged. And Certainly, there's elements of that on a Mako Mart, but the hallways are so thin, they can be cordoned off by a splash wall, for example. So maybe a bit more limited in their field, as we're going to see the 52 and the Blaster come out, and it'll continue to be the vanilla versus custom Blaster. Erito with that Inkling tri-stringer to keep the Super Chumps on board. Nothing really changing as we get set for game 2.
Yeah, a lot of expected things coming out from these two teams in terms of the weapon lineup. Nothing to really shake things up this time around here, as Ascension gets the early lead here on the zone here, getting the early points, shutting down the Carbon Roller out the gate as well to really establish themselves up pretty well here in mid. Sam using the crab take here to push back their many members of Takedown to discourage them from actually dropping down, to allow the Ascension, the remainder of the Ascension anyways, to set up properly.
So Ascension setting up here and kind of going their separate ways. They're splitting themselves evenly across the stage. A couple members, Mirage namely, holding down the middle, and they send Sam left and the rest right, but they're going to have to regroup at some point. I think that division was leading to their ultimate demise. As Takedown, they conversely were able to collapse and make sure that they could advance as one, and Takedown ends up taking the zone as a result. Now Ascension with less room to maneuver around, but they still are somewhat split. They're even using the crab tank on a very low ground area, which is pretty uncommon. You typically want to have that crab tank either on the sniper perch, or if you can get up to that ramp area, these boxes, the Erito is just behind. That's where you ideally want to do it. They've given Takedown a lot of breathing room, and they take the lead as a result.
Lead Swap applies a bit more pressure against Ascension to really get their push in and movement here, as they do take 2, make that 3 players down in an instant. They're able to completely wipe out Takedown here with the delayed wipeout on top, and now Kool-Aid is going to get themselves set up in the proper prime position they want to be here under this ledge before dueling it out Santo. Unfortunately, getting taken down as well, losing a lot of their offensive power from Ascension. Takedown has opportunity here to maybe try apply a lot of pressure here, but it's still a bit of a tricky situation.
So now the Super Chumps come out pretty well placed. I mean, perfectly right on top of the zone, although the ones mostly on the zone will be taken care of in no time flat. That will steal the zone away just temporarily, as Ascension threatening to take the lead, and now they will. Santo trying to find a pick, will get one onto Kool-Aid, and a fadeaway onto Chiva. Great shot there from a special that needed to have impact in order for Takedown to return back to the zone. It will temporarily cost them the lead, but it's not a huge penalty to chew through, and 2 specials back online, the triple splashdown and the Super Chump that could be right on top of the zone in a pinch. For the Super Chump, they'll use it aggressively, maybe to even help, even with the triple splashdown, to get rid of that big bubbler. It seems to be one of the most hated specials in the game, and Tufa seems to be one of the most aggressive blaster players in the game.
Yeah, Tufa really leveraging their weapon to the best of their ability here. Takes 2 before finally going down, though, and unfortunately did not end up that well for Takedown, as called out by Kool-Aid. Tufa goes down once again, and now Ascension is in the driver's seat here, running away with these penalty points, running away with this positioning here, having so much territory control on their side of the map, with yellow painting on the other side of the map. Ascension has a lot of deniability here to just slow down Takedown, prevent them from being able to move up here. Kool-Aid, again, under this ledge, could be a very, very powerful boon in the favor of Ascension if they can keep themselves in that position there. But it's called out by Tanner, and now things are starting to break down for Ascension.
Yeah, been a while since we've checked in on Tanner, but it seems like they're up to their old ways, getting a couple picks there on the end zap and assisting with another. It's just another day for Tanner. So not just that, but in the process of getting these picks, they're building up their tactical. So it's not like they aren't doing their job as a support player on the end zap. They have the special when they need it, and they're keeping the momentum up in favor of Takedown. It's just in a way that I think a lot of support players that aren't as aggressively minded would not take. So here comes the Super Chump once again, just slightly ahead of zone to keep Ascension to have a difficult time to get back in, just barely getting rid of that penalty. But it's a 3v2 for Ascension. That may spell the end of that push, getting up to 26. But we're running out of time here. 45 seconds. Takedown needs to find some semblance of survivability if they want to have a shot at keeping this one an even keel.
Yeah, I mean, with that recent flip, Ascension bought themselves a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra wiggle room here to try and properly get a true push setup against Takedown here, but time is dwindling here. These next few picks need to be crucial here for the momentum of Ascension. Sam takes out Tanner, which takes out that tactical as well as that offensive pressure from the NZAP here, and now, just like that, Ascension cleans up early, so Takedown now down a player, make that two, Santo nowhere around as Ascension bunkers down, just holds onto the zone, hunts down Tufa, and just like that, Ascension takes the second game.
Don't let Cool Ace do that. I mean, okay, the squid bagging at the very end when you know you've won the game, I've seen that one plenty of times before. Mid-fight, you get a pick, squid bag, have another player come up, help to take them down, find a third that's literally locked into a corner that's playing your same style of weapon, and there it is. So that's the first one. Then hits the direct, is in the flow or estate, traps Tufa in a corner, literally has nowhere to go, even by missing the initial shot, hits that pick, hits the celebration, and it is just... It's BM, but it's endearing in a way.
Yeah.
I'm not on the other side of it, so I'm okay with seeing it. But I'm sure I'd be tilted if I was on the other side. But regardless, Ascension, that's sort of how they played. They ultimately had the stronger composition. Takedown, yet again, with some strong moments. I mean, they're showing why they deserve to be here this late in the tournament. But Ascension, they're one game away from a qualification as a result.
Yeah, one game away from the qualification. This is where all the chips are going to be stacked against Takedown, see if they can claw their way back to, again, a potential reverse sweep here in this qualifier match here. But before we get to that, we do have to get the next few bans strikes out from Ascension before we take the ball back to the core of Takedown for this next stage pick here. And out the gate, Sturgeon Shipyard, not surprised by that. No one seems eager to play that stage at all. As well as Wahoo World, sometimes slips from the strikes, but still gets struck down and not played nonetheless. So Takedown now has this pool of 12 stages left to select their potentially final game or potential first game of this reverse sweep incoming.
Yeah, Wahoo World, one of those that isn't seen a ton, but it's not as though it is people stray away from it from zones specifically. I think just as a stage, it's not one that you very commonly go to, and it caters to certain weapons quite well. Dynamo can play around it very well with the low walls, sloshers. You know, you have low walls that anchor players can get on, but you also have, not dissimilar to Humpback, you have a moat, circular moat underbelly there that you would probably not want to play against when you're going up against a roller and a blaster, for example. So those, as you mentioned, the last bans that we will see today from Ascension, regardless of the result. And we go to something that our spec cam operator may not necessarily agree with. We'll have to find out. Hagglefish Market, that neutral game element returns, and they'll have to be darn good on it because through the first two games, Ascension has looked like the better team.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, a lot of chips are stacked against Takedown. You're really betting it all on your own player, your own plays as a team and as a player to really edge out this win here against Ascension. There's nothing too particular about Hagglefish Market that really owes to one particular playstyle, but even then, if there is a particular edge on a stage, you guys both run a pretty similar team comp anyway, so it wouldn't even be a factor. So it's very much like Takedown. Everything is riding on this now, and the pressure is stacked high, and I'm hoping that we see the good show that you're betting on right now.
Look, what I remember about this one for Takedown, because we have seen them on this stage and obviously mode before, is that Santo was playing in the alley looking for picks. You know, the enemy, they were playing outside of the range of the vertical flick of the carbon. So you're not able to get value through that unless you're just spamming burst bombs. Erito, oftentimes the last one surviving, they stay on top of that uninkable tent. And so you can't always quickly come to the aid of your teammates. And so that puts a lot of pressure on to Tanner with the NZAP to create that space for Santo to get in, as well as for Tufa to get in. So a lot of pressure, I would say, on Erito and Tan in particular to give as much leeway to Tufa and Santo, because they are going to have some star performances on their aggressively minded weapons. And Ascension has done a great job of bunkering when they need to, playing slightly more defensively. Now, obviously, they want to let Cool Ace and Chiva off the reins, but Takedown is going to have to conquer them if they want to extend this series. Ascension, however, one game away from being our third and final team to qualify for the Splat World Series 2026 finals. Let's take a look as that Bulbs Tri-Stringer comes back on this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Inkjet here because the map geometry allows it to get to a lot more higher and a lot more threatening angles than, than most other maps would be able to provide it. So I understand this pivot here from Takedown. But out the gate, we do see the crowd take coming out from Sam to apply that early pressure against Takedown. Ascension going down for a 1-for-1 trade on the right alley there as they take this first zone here. Santo trying to go for a pick, but gets taken down in a 2v1, and now the Cabal is in the Ascension's court to be able to play up, move up, and get as much points as they can.
Yeah, Chiva in-game name on Zana, putting a lot of pressure on Takedown, threatening that two-shot splat. Is Arito going to try and combat that with the Inkjet of their own? That's one of the main categories I've seen the Inkjet used, is you rarely, outside of a player like Hawaiian, see them be the Star Slayer. You are just getting chip damage off and providing aerial support, because as we know, gamers don't like to look up, but it has been a tough going for Takedown. We do see the pick on to Chiva and a second on to Sam, looking for the third. They end up pulling out the Trizuka, maybe just try to hit that clip, but regardless, they will fully wipe out Ascension and take the zone for the first time this game.
Yeah, a good flip from Takedown leads to this position here from Ascension, playing back against the walls right now. The Takedown has a lot of space to play around with, so move around with, but Sam pops the crab tank, denies some of that space from Takedown, and now looking to try and move forward with the remainder of Ascension. The lead has been swapped in favor of Takedown here, but the question is, can they keep this momentum, keep this positioning in their favor? It's hard to say right now as Sam comes to the back line, gets one, pushes Takedown back even further, and now Ascension is in the driver's seat once more.
See, what do you do if you're a player like Tufa there? One shot and the entire enemy team turns and knows that you're there, and you barely have any paint down, you have any ink down on that alleyway, so you have to jump out. So that it's a lot of wasted momentum and calories, if you will, as we see Ascension taking the lead back over. And Mirage, yet again in the premier position, they are never belying their ideals to stay right on or right in front of the zone, and they are basically an immovable pillar. The rest of Ascension a little bit more flexible though. Mirage acting as that living beacon as Arito's going to get into the Inkjet, not find anything quite yet, just get a bit of chip damage, but that's all Takedown needs to get right back into control of the zone.
Yeah, a good flip for Takedown allows them to start chipping away at those penalty points, and a beautiful shot from Santo allows Ascension, or makes Ascension slow down at least a little bit on this incoming push here, especially with Tactical or Online for a Takedown, allows them to really move around the map without any issue of slowing down. Now we see Ascension get ready for their incoming push here. We do see two players on the left alleys try and go for a flank around, but two players down, make that three players down. Ascension is at the disadvantage here as Takedown is on the edges, potentially taking the lead here.
Going to be a mad dash. Ascension does have the big bubbler online as they lose the lead, but Santo is very far ahead. They get the pick onto Sam as well. They almost roll over and do roll over Cool Ace. Rare to see that one happen. The carbon roller squash is going to help Takedown claim at least one game off of Ascension. We're extended to a game 4, and they prove that they can win it out on a more neutral-oriented stage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm real honest. I did not realize you guys actually had it like that, because with how the past two games have been so far, it just seemed clear that Ascension would most likely run away with this game as well, and they almost did. They brought it down to 17 points remaining, but no, a Takedown was like, hey, we get the download. We always get the download. We'll get the download once again here. Trust us on this one. We're going here, and we're gonna win it out, and they won it out here. Now they're the ones doing the bans. Now they're going to be playing against Ascension's counterpick, which I think is also going to be a very interesting to see how Takedown reacts moving forward.
Just one of those things where you don't ask how, you just ask how many. It was not the most definitive victory. It was very tenuous at times, but they are able to do it, and they're ready, to their great credit, for the bans. It's going to be Brinewater and Eeltail gone. Eeltail's been a consistent ban this entire time, and it does appear that Umami Ruins might be the next pick. We'll get that confirmation in just a moment with the graphic, but Umami Ruins has been played today already. Seems like it's been a popular pick, not just to play on, but to not be counterpicked, or sorry, to not be stricken. So it's not something that players are looking to ban. It seems like everybody's generally okay with going here. And for a player like the Carbon Roller and the Blaster, I can see why, because you have the Trizuka. It seems like a very fitting stage layout for a Trizuka, but it also gives you plenty of opportunities to strike. You just cannot be on the receiving end of a spawn lockout, because that is the one area where Ascension may have a definitive advantage.
Yeah, it is up to Takedown here to prevent a potential lockout scenario on their end. They don't want to be their backs against the wall on this, against Ascension here on this map in particular, because it's so devastatingly hard to try and climb out of. So I like what Takedown has in terms of their weapon lineup with Santo and Tufa specifically, and how they can play around the map geometry and how they can play around a lot of this the map strengths for those weapons specifically. But you lose out too much ground, Ascension pushes you back. It's kind of hard pressed to actually try and re-engage on them.
And Sam is going to be threatening for Ascension with the Crab Tank. I feel like if you use the Crab Tank, and that was one of the pitfalls on Mako Mart earlier, is that the Crab Tank was being used in a really low elevation spot. If you can get it onto the high ground, that is going to be, very ideal for your style of play, because you can get both zones and you can force the members of Takedown back. Taking a look at the compositions, we say bye-bye to the Bulbs Tri-Stringer and hello again to the Inkling with Super Chumps. Otherwise, not much change. It is still the Blaster v Custom Blaster mentality, as these teams look to claim a zone each and then meet each other in the middle.
Yeah, a breakaway here to mid to see exactly who can get the first hold, who can get the first fight in their favor. It seems like Takedown may be the one in favor here, pushing Ascension back bit by bit, 2 going down to Santo, and Takedown has a solid opening here to be able to set themselves up for this chokehold here. Now, the question is, how do they play it out here? They have the tactical online, which gives them some safety net in terms of a straight pick or two, but Santo pops the Inkzuka, tries to find a pick, does not find anyone, tries to use it for pressure, slows him down at least a little bit, but Erito is down, so now Ascension is moving in quickly as fast as they can to take advantage of that.
I think you said the key 3 words there. Erito is down. In a lot of ways, when you have a Tri-Stringer instead of a Charger in that position, you put a lot more pressure on your opponent, because you're not having to make a perfect straight line to get a splat. You can fire over obstacles and still hit them or even get a splat there. So that is a major reason why Takedown was able to hold the 2 zones for so long. You need to get Erito back into that premier position. Speaking of premier position, Sam was on the high ground here trying to find anybody on the side of Takedown. Erito in their sights gets them about half, but it's not going to be enough. That will be their method of stalling in order to claim the lead, though, away from Takedown.
Yeah, lead is now swapped, so the ball is in now. Takes down court to see exactly how they want to go for this next approach here. Tactical is online is a good start, sacking that with the Super Chumps to pivot around to get Sam out of the question. No Crab Taker allows Area to move up freely without any issue of getting taken out now, which could have been a good opportunity here if it were not for Cool Ace to swim through everyone, take out Area. And now Ascension, what was probably a bit of a devastating hold there, turns into a very solid pivot and swing of momentum.
I want to take it back to a point we made near the beginning of the broadcast, which is, when you know you're going to be splatted, are you still able to get value? Because that's the mark of a strong player. But Ascension getting into single digits here. Mirage trying to keep it locked down. Can anyone from Takedown steal it back? Santo locking down at least one zone that buys some time for the Super Chumps to come through. But there goes Tufa, and there goes their end zap as well. And Santo stay alive. They cannot get the zone in time. And Ascension, after some back and forth on Umami Ruins, they will take game 4 and will be our final qualifier coming out of the second Western qualifier for the Splat World Series 26.
Oh man, what a good set that was for Takedown to go toe-to-toe against Ascension and almost actually potentially steal away that fourth game against Ascension, but things fell apart a little bit too fast for them, and unfortunately they weren't able to recover. Ascension, moving in quickly as they normally do, was able to come out on top on this set and be, as you said, Zach, that third qualifying team. And man, I gotta say, what a run it was for not just Takedown, but for this entire set. But I gotta give credit for Takedown for just bringing it back from their losers bracket run here.
Yeah, I think the 2 or 3 first teams from this event that did not qualify, I think they had similar issues where it was just a domino effect where they would have these strongholds, but one mistake would lead to another and then another and then another, and then you lose space as a result, or you lose a pivotal player that's locking down the only thing, like the plug or the cork in the dam. It spills out, all the water comes flooding out, and that's the overwhelming power that our 3 qualifying teams from this event were able to bring through. So I'm thrilled. I cannot wait to see how they fare against the East. And we, of course, have the competition from the first qualifier that will also be going up against the representatives from the East. And so that's what I love about Splat World Series is you give an avenue, you give an opening for players around the entire world to compete at the highest level. And we're not far off from that happening as it goes on next month.
Yeah, no, the time is nearly nigh to see exactly how things shape around this year around. And from today alone, we see Eternus, Content Cat, and Ascension being our representatives from today's qualifiers. So I'm eager to see exactly how these teams play out in the upcoming main events. But I do think that is probably all we have for today, unless Ellie can confirm if there's anything else we need to mention or say or plug in.
I think that might be it. So, yeah, I mean, final thoughts from me. Obviously, Dark, it's been a pleasure casting with you and having Ellie there on the spec cam. Caught some incredibly hype moments. But please watch the Splat World Series finals in August. I know you guys are going to have a blast.
It's going to be a great showing and a great time around here. But I do think that's going to be it. So we are going to wrap things up here. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. And I am excited for the Splat World Series here. Kicks off, playoff dates are August 7th and August 8th. Save that in your calendar. Be there. We will be there, but I better see you there too. And yeah, what a great show it has been.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody viewing. Thank you so much for attending the Western Qualifier number 2. We will see y'all in August for the Splat World Series finals. But until next time, we will see y'all later.